KIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, October 19th. Good morning. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, mainly sunny 0, but feels like -3. In Smiths Falls, it is 4 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. About 3,000 residents in Sidsville are without power this morning. Hydro Ottawa says they are investigating the cause. The power outage covers Ivor Road, Beachfern and Talltree areas, and crews expect that power will be restored at about noon. The inflation rate is at 6.9%. That's above what most economists had predicted. Our senior business editor, Mike Apple, says it's one segment overall, others boosting the amount you are paying.
Grocery prices, according to StatsCan, in September jumped 11.5% compared to September a year ago. And that is the fastest increase in your grocery bill since 1981. The core rate reading of inflation, which takes out food and energy prices, it was elevated and above forecast, up 4.7%.
And Mike Apple tells us interest rates will go up for the 6th time this year. What isn't known is by how much. Guesses range from half to 4 point. With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Well, these November-like temperatures continue, but we will have a warm-up for the end of the week and especially on the weekend. Our guaranteed high today, 9 degrees, sun, cloud, showers, mainly for the afternoon. And then we get into a steadier light rain tonight, may even mix with some snow, 3 degrees for the low. For today, the guaranteed high, 9.
City News time, 10:02. The municipal election is just 5 days away, and rank-and-file police officers are entering the political debate, declining to endorse any candidates for mayor. City News reporter Chris Curries has the story.
The Ottawa Police Association says they will respect the democratic process. However, Brian Samuel, interim president, has a clear idea of who he would rather you not vote for.
Catherine McKenney has supported incorrect statements and dangerous stereotypes about police.
McKenney, one of the leading proponents behind reallocating police resources to non-policing forms of public safety. Now, this video came out just hours after McKenney and Bob Shirelli wrote a joint letter to the province, asking them to delay hiring a new police chief in Ottawa, calling foul play on the relationship between Mark Sutcliffe and Eli El-Shantiri, his campaign co-chair, but also the chair of the Police Services Board. Chris Curries, City News.
City News time is 10:03. The public inquiry into the use of the Federal Emergencies Act continues today. Diane Deans, the former chair of the Ottawa Police Services Board, takes the stand, as well as Patricia Ferguson, the acting deputy chief of Ottawa Police. The inquiry is examining what led to the federal government's emergency declaration on February 14th to deal with the trucker convoy protest. It granted extraordinary powers to police to clear anti-lockdown protesters occupying the area outside of Parliament Hill. And dancers, singers, magicians, terrible magicians, they're all in Niagara Falls today for the third set of auditions for Canada's Got Talent. City News reporter Jeff Rohoman is speaking with one of the judges ahead of the new season.
Yeah, the good and the bad will be on display at Fallsview Casino in Niagara Falls starting this afternoon. Hopefully a lot more bad than the last season. The bad is what makes it good, am I right? But it's the start of a life-changing journey for someone and a chance for us to thump our Canadian chests, according to Trish Stratus, who's back as a judge.
You know, I'm sure we've all had our moments where we watch AGT and we've been like, that Canadian has come on. You're like, they're from Canada. And you're just rooting for them, right? But now we have, they're a platform for our Canadians to go and shine and really, deliver the goods.
So they're taping 2 audition shows a day starting today and going right through the weekend. Now, the show won't air until the spring, but when it does, it'll be on City TV, which is owned by Rogers, the parent company of this radio station. Jeff Rahoman, City News.
I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you so much for spending time with us here on City News. It is going to be a very busy 3 hours. We know that this election is heating up. It's getting spicy. We're going to be staying with all of this story today. We're going to be having Mark Sutcliffe join us about 10:45 today. You'll want to be here for that. On the business lunch today, Sueling Ching, CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade, is going to join us, as well as Jeffrey Maddox, Nokia Canada president. We know that new facility is going to be built in Canada. The Prime Minister, the Premier, everybody was there on Monday. We're going to be talking to Jeffrey about all the details. And on Lunch with Sam today, we're going to be talking with two community leaders about the top 5 news stories of the day. Bernie Forestell is going to join us, fundraising professional, and Greg MacEachern is going to join us, Senior Vice President, Government Relations and General Manager with Ottawa Proof Strategies. Wendy Boomer is going to be in the house. Wendy helps us visit the Valley and make sure we know what's happening in the Valley. So Wendy's going to be spending some time with us today. We're also going to be spending some time today with Lucille, Liberal MPP for Ottawa-Vanier. We're going to be asking Lucille her thoughts on Premier Ford's response to the occupation. If you remember way back, a lot of people were saying, where's Doug? And he only really woke up to what was happening here in the capital when Windsor started to go bad, when they were blocking the bridge to Windsor, and we know that it affected economic development in this country. A lot of people were asking on Twitter, does Doug Ford know Ottawa's part of Ontario? Right, so we're going to be speaking with Lucille about that. We're also going to be speaking, as I mentioned, with Mark Sutcliffe, who of course is running for mayor. Cassian Soltykevich is going to join us, National Secretary for the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. Oh, this is a heartbreaking story, of course. You know, the people of Ukraine has been through so much. We know there's been extensive drone strikes. We're going to be speaking with Cassian and getting an update from him. Pierre Leroux is also going to join us, the mayor of Russell. And what's better than one mayor? Well, it's two mayors. We're heading to Smith Falls to speak with Mayor Shawn Pankow. Hi, Mayor.
Good morning, Sam.
It's 5 days before the big election, and boy, in Smith Falls, you do it a little bit different, don't you, Mayor?
Yeah, we do. We don't mind being a little different at times and trying a different approach.
So tell us a little bit about how this all came about in terms of electronic voting.
Well, late last year, actually, staff had researched the various voting methods that could be available, and we've had hybrid models in the past. And the consensus at the time, like every other municipality in Lanark County and many other municipalities across the province, was to proceed with electronic voting. And I actually voted yesterday. It was a very, very simple process. We've had some feedback from residents who are concerned about maybe not having the opportunity to vote in person via paper ballot, but we've been reassured that they can vote in person at Town Hall. Our staff were at a couple of retirement homes and nursing home yesterday to try and help facilitate anyone who may have had some challenges with regards to the voting method. So to my understanding, everything's moving ahead quite fine at this stage.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting. And what are some of the top issues that that voters are talking about right now?
A number. Affordability is a concern with everybody. So taxes are always going to be an issue, and we've been, extremely financially responsible over this last term. I think our average tax increase was 0.65% over the last 4 years. So I think most municipalities would be happy with that. Most taxpayers are happy with that. We've got Confederation Bridge, which is a hot topic. Potential considerations of OPP costing. We're the municipal police service now. We've had for since the 1800s. So there's a number of relevant topics that tend to emerge every election. Overall, housing affordability is probably one that stands out. Mm-hmm. It's one that come up, I think every candidate spoke to during our canvassing.
It certainly is a hot topic everywhere, I think, in terms of, here in the capital as well. But it's interesting, I think many people think, communities outside of the core, it's more affordable, but you still need to find affordable housing within affordable communities.
Absolutely, and it's probably the issue that I worry about more than others. We noticed that in the last census, the number of people renting homes in Smith Falls actually rose from 43% to 45%. So virtually one in two people in our community are renting a home, and supply has been very constrained over decades. I think there's 60 new rental units built between 96 and 2016, and of course we've got hundreds, I think probably about 500 or 600 homes under development in the stage right now, and the majority of those being rental units, but they're not going to be affordable. I mean, a developer cannot build a home today and rent it out at a loss, and even the not-for-profit sector. We have a project one project moving ahead in our downtown, but the financial gymnastics required to pull together the potential funding sources, including a $500,000 donation from St. John the Baptist Anglican Church in town, as well as supports from the county, and so the volume of effort and the pieces that need to fit together to create deeply affordable rent-to-income housing is something that is far too difficult. Mm-hmm. And of course, we need the federal government, the provincial government, to step up and start to provide greater support. And we're willing to do our part, but we can't do it alone. And in many instances, for relying on the for-profit development community, they can't do it cheaply. We know what the cost of construction is, and we've recently passed a community improvement plan for attainable housing and for accessibility improvements. And I think it's something that is probably one of the few things that we can do as a small single-tier municipality, is to provide some incentives and an opportunity for developers to come in and build below market rent units and have some financial support from the town to do so. But it's a complex problem we can't solve on our own, and I hear from people every single week who either are being forced out of a home or cannot find a home or cannot find a home they can afford.
Well, it certainly is a big issue, and we know you're running for mayor again. You've got one opponent. We certainly wish you all the best on the campaign trail here on election night, October 24th, which is this upcoming Monday. We will be doing special coverage. My colleague, of course, Rob Snow, will be hosting. I'll be here as well, and we're going to be looking into the Valley, Mayor, so we'll be following the story very closely.
Sounds good, Sam. Look forward to connecting again sometime soon.
Always a pleasure. Mayor Shawn Pankow joining us from Smiths Falls. Appreciate his time today. Well, if you're just tuning in, you may be wondering, why is Sam Laprade on at 10:12 on a Wednesday? Well, we've done some shifting around. In the morning, this morning, for instance, woke up with Rob Snow. He has Wake Up with Rob Snow happening every day between 6 and 9, which is fantastic. David Smith, our host and producer here, hosts from 9 to 10, and he hosts the Talkback Hour, giving you an opportunity to have your say. We want to hear from you. You can call him every weekday, of course, between 9 and 10. And then I join you here between 10 and 1 every day. We kind of talk about everything. I mean, obviously, hot topics right now is the municipal election. Obviously, the Emergency Act inquiry. We're on those stories very, very closely. Of course, our news team is here for you as well, bringing all those breaking news stories for you. You want to stay with us here on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Blood in the urine is the most common symptom of bladder cancer. Don't ignore this warning sign, not even once.
I'm a singer-songwriter from Six Nations, and I've been writing songs about my experience. And with that being said, it's helped me hold hope in my heart in following my dreams and being resilient to everyday Indigenous battles. Competition between spirit, earth, and wind, let me tell you now. This song in particular, The Shiner, is a special song that I wrote for my grandfather. He was a snow snake maker, and that is a Haudenosaunee winter sport. It's my job to educate and to share, and the music allows me to do that. He'll be shining snow snakes and mudcats to the end of his days.
Monday, October 24th is Municipal Election Day in Ontario, an important election to set the post-pandemic course for our community. Turn to Rogers TV for the local results, your comprehensive coverage as the votes are counted. Tune in to find out who's heading to Municipal Council. On election night, Rogers TV leads with local.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at the lighting and the sound, and it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Last week was certainly a very, very busy weekend, and I spent a little bit of it with Dave Khalil, who joins me now. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Sam.
Dave, we were out in the beautiful community of Russell, and, an opportunity to remember Jonathan Petrie, who touched the hearts of so many people in this community, and his beautiful mom, Tina Below, was there, and that beautiful park, accessible park, was named after Jonathan, and boy, you could feel his spirit there that day, Dave.
Yeah, the whole thing was fantastically done, and he was a real hero of mine, and he was a big Sens fan too, so
absolutely.
I could identify with him pretty well.
We know you were there, Dave, because you helped raise $20,000 to make that park happen. What was it like to be on site and sort of see that dream come true?
Well, I'm just a small part of it. I think they got a lot of government funding, but I don't know, just to, his mom and Mr. Drouin, I think the federal, one of those federal MPs or whatever he is, sorry, not political, said it well. He touched, this Jonathan kid touched the lives of so many, and he was an inspiration to so many, and always in a great mood and always encouraging people. So, an accessible park, and you can see that the mayor, Pierre, Leroux, is a fantastic guy too, and they've all done a great job, and the park is just, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. You can feel it. You can feel the spirit, and his mom was very appreciative. And
absolutely. Ironically, Mayor Pierre Leroux is coming up after we chat, so we'll have a chance to connect with him as well. And when we were standing there, Dave, and witnessing this, and it was emotional. I was emotional, as you know. I was a bit of a weeper that day. Needed some tissues. It was such a beautiful day. But you turned to me at the end of it and you said, "Sam, I'm ready to do something else for this community. What can we do?" And I told you, Dave, that a couple days before that I had Sarah Davis on from Cornerstone, and they're trying to get back into a building where they had a fire, and you said, "Okay, Sam, let's do something for that." And what are you doing, Dave Khalil?
What am I doing? Well, I'm just going to sing, and I'm going to play a bunch of songs on my Facebook Live show called Take a Break. I think it might be our 79th show. I've taken a bit of a hiatus over the summer because it's golf season, and I teach golf at the Hunt Club, and I'm pretty busy. And we're actually playing live now as dueling pianos a bunch. But I have this Saturday off, and we're going to do a take a break show and raise some cash for Cornerstone.
It's amazing.
A housing for women over 50 with different types of problems, mental disorders and drug issues.
And we know that Cornerstone has just kept up being resilient through this whole pandemic. They've had so many different, challenges thrown their way. They seem to combat them all, but they really do need the community to step up. And if we even take some time out on Saturday night to watch you, Dave, that's going to benefit Cornerstone. Tell us how.
Well, people pledge a certain number of dollars per head per viewer, so that's been our most organic way of raising money and people getting involved. My Take a Break crowd is very generous, and so we have $15 a head per viewer pledged right now. So if you show up, $15 goes to Cornerstone.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And what's your goal? Would you, are we thinking it would maybe get to $20?
The sky's the limit. You never know if a guy like Gary Zed shows up.
Exactly.
But I've been speaking with Amber over at Cornerstone, and they've already raised $14,000 out of the $50 that they need.
Excellent.
So I don't know if we can get 10 or 15,000. That'd put a pretty good dent in it.
It certainly would. And what would that bring the total to? Because I know not only for the Jonathan Petrie Park, but in this upcoming time for Cornerstone, but you've hosted these Take a Break concerts before on Facebook, and of course, everybody just loves you, Dave. We love tuning into you. But how much have you raised to date in total since COVID started?
185,000.
Wow.
So 15 would put us up to 200, which would be a great round number, but it's not about us. It's about the cause. And the fire made a lot of water and mold damage over there at Cornerstone. So they're struggling just to buy bedding and sheets and stuff. So it's pretty easy to support that.
For sure.
It's all the things. Thanks for suggesting that.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's all those things that we take for granted. Dave, it was on the list. It was, like you mentioned, bedding and comforters and, body wash and towels and things that, we just kind of go into our bedrooms or our washrooms and we just find them there because we're privileged to have them. But we have to remember, even people in our community are needing those things.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that's a lot of the motivation of why we do what we do.
For sure. Dave Khalil, it's always a pleasure to spend time with you, and Take a Break concert happening for Cornerstone this upcoming Saturday night, 7:30 start, right?
Yep, 7:30 on my Facebook page, Dave Khalil, Kalil.
Excellent. Well, we'll be able to find you. When we can't find you on the golf course, we find you on Facebook, entertaining all of us and dueling pianos and all that good stuff. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Sam. Say hi to the mayor for me.
Will do, for sure. Mayor Pierre Leroux is going to be joining us in a minute. We were out, Dave Khalil and I were out in Russell, and of course, Mayor Pierre Leroux was there. And he was talking about really the impact that Jonathan Petrie's made on the community of Russell. And he joins me now. Hi, Mayor.
Hey.
Hi, thanks so much. You looked very handsome on Saturday in your purple suit and your butterfly vest.
Thank you. I try and have a suit for every occasion.
It was fantastic. And of course, those are the colors representing Jonathan and the park. And the park just looks absolutely beautiful, Mayor.
Thank you. We're very proud of it.
And this election is a different one in Russell. Tell us why.
Well, for me, it was when we started this campaign, we decided that we wouldn't proceed with spending money on campaign signs for my election. And we decided to reinvest that money towards local community projects instead. And we brought on board community partners, sponsors, if you will, to help grow those funds for the project. So, so it was a little bit unique in the sense that I created a program where people would take selfies with a cutout of myself and upload it to social media. And every time they did so, there was money that would be going towards the project.
It's such an interesting, innovative idea. Where did it come from, Pierre?
My mind at 3 o'clock in the morning when I woke up. It was just sort of, I've seen different projects in the community come together and different ways. So it's kind of bringing all those projects together. Our common friend, Dave Khalil, when he did the fundraising for Jonathan Petrie, $20,000 in an hour and a half concert. I couldn't understand how, and that was it. He started. He was giving a little bit of money for everybody watching live, and then he got a bunch of sponsors on top of that. So the cumulative effect of the fundraising was just incredible, and that was part of where this idea came from.
Absolutely. He was just on. We were just talking to Dave and raving about how he had raised that money and such an important time. And Mayor, what does the Russell election look like this upcoming Monday?
So I ended up getting acclaimed. So I won't. I'm not in the. I'll be here for another 4 years. But there's 7 members of council who are running for 4 positions. Sorry. 4 positions.
What's it like to get an acclamation like that? Is that a pretty big nod from the community? Would you say?
Yeah, that's what people keep telling me. It's bittersweet in my opinion, because that's not the way democracy is supposed to work. I would love to be able to debate and talk about my vision for the community and make sure you get through a vote, you would know clearly you have the support of the community in that way. Personally, it was a big stress relief. So it is what it is.
It is what it is. Well, congratulations on being acclaimed. Mayor, we'll certainly be catching up with you over the next 4 years. We'll keep in touch with everything happening in Russell and appreciate your leadership as well in terms of Jonathan Petrie. And I know how happy Jonathan's family and particularly Tina Below, his beautiful mom, was that day. And seeing the families just enjoying it already, that was the icing on top.
Yeah, it was a beautiful ceremony. The sun came out, a little windy, but it was great to see everybody out, and the kids playing in the park was just a moment to remember.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Mayor Pierre Leroux joining us from Russell. He's been acclaimed, which certainly is a nod from the community, I'm sure. When we come back, Cassian Soltykevich is going to join us, National Secretary with the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. And then around 10:45, mayoral candidate Mark Sutcliffe is going to join us. It is a spicy, spicy day today on this campaign trail. We're going to get a chance to speak with Mark about all the issues. Lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. That was a lot. I think I need a nap.
I mean, policing in every community is going to be challenged. The community policing model is already a harm reduction response to the way that they police. I just think that we have, again, another opportunity to use police for the things that police should be used for, and then develop some other avenues for things that we can take off a police officer's plate, because it's just not what they should be doing.
$20. Hi, I'm Maggie. Come into my kitchen. When you're using salt in a recipe, check for saltiness. Not all salts are equal. A fine grain salt is a lot more salty than a large grain salt because that takes longer to get into the food. Bum, 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 bum. $20. $20.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
In the Stidville area, 2,750 customers on Iber Road, Beachfern and Tawtry areas of the city lost power at about 10 a.m. Hydro Ottawa says the cause of the outage was equipment related. And it's the final day of bargaining talks between the province and the union representing Ontario's education workers. Yesterday, the Canadian Union of Public Employees said there were no improvement or details to report after the second day of bargaining. A conciliator's report on Monday kicked off a countdown for the union's 55,000 education members to be in a legal strike position as of November 3rd. The union has not indicated if education workers would engage in a full strike, which could potentially close schools or start a work-to-roll campaign or take some other course of action. And Russia's president has declared martial law in the 4 Ukrainian regions annexed by Moscow. The declaration is set to give additional emergency powers to the Russian heads of each region. In a televised remark, the president said they are working to solve very difficult large-scale tasks to ensure Russia's security and safe future. Drafts of legislation indicate the decree may involve imposing restrictions on travel and also public gatherings, tighter censorship and broader authority for law enforcement agencies. City News time is 10:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, if we think back to February 25th, 2022 is when Russia invaded Ukraine. And the tragedy just continues, unfortunately. Cassian Soltykevich is joining us now, National Secretary for the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. Hello, Cassian.
Good morning.
Cassian, thanks so much for spending time with us. You've been very generous over the last number of months talking about, the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. What are you hearing right now from your contacts in Ukraine?
Well, we've seen a dramatic shift in the last 2 weeks or so in terms of Russia's desperation. We're seeing intensified terror bombing, capital city of Kiev, and many other cities across the country. We're seeing missiles being attacking these Ukrainian cities. Also many drones. These drones are being supplied by Iran, a state sponsor of terrorism. We're seeing, basically acts of desperation trying to harm civilian infrastructure, trying to harm civilians, knocking out power stations, basically trying to make Ukrainian people suffer through the winter that's coming up ahead.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely a theme that I've been seeing as well. Really, making sure that nobody has any source of heat through this upcoming winter as well. We know that Russia, from what we understand from reports, are leaving their dead soldiers in the streets. They're not taking care of them. We understand that as well. Putin is really becoming, as you indicated, desperate and trying all sorts of things. Many people are saying that he's losing this war. What do you think about that, Cassian?
I think there's no question about it that he's lost the war already in terms of to his population and to the world. He said he was going to take over Kiev and the whole of the country in 72 hours, and here we are 7-8 months later, and that obviously still has not happened or will not happen. So I think he's lost it in that kind of sense, but he continues to be, in that terms of the desperation, continues to kill civilians, continues to throw whatever he can at Ukraine. Ukraine keeps on stepping up and, trying to repel as best as they can, but they still need more equipment. They need that air defense, be able to defend against missiles, against drones. Those sorts of things will help Ukraine win faster, because the longer that this takes, the more civilians will be killed, soldiers, of course, as well, but many civilians and more infrastructure will be damaged and harmed. So it continues on, but there just needs to be more support to Ukraine.
Cassian, with everything going on in the world, you know, we think about all the different tragedies that have happened, especially over the last 7 months, including, you know, the people of Ukraine and what they've gone through. Is it hard to keep this top of mind for people to realize, you know, this war obviously is not over. The people of Ukraine still need help, and obviously, as you mentioned, you know, lots of different equipment needed and resources needed. Is it hard to keep it top of mind?
It is. You know, for us Ukrainians, it's the first thing you do in the morning is look at Twitter, you look at Facebook, and you see what's been shared and what's happened the last, 8 hours since you've been sleeping. So it's not hard for us, but we understand for Canadians. You know, it's difficult. It's tragic. It's depressing sometimes to look at news every single day and seeing something so bad happening. So I understand there's a lot of that. It's a big mental toll to keep up to it all the time. So understanding that, but understanding that this is also going to take, we're very thankful for Canadian support. There was an outpouring, it continues to be, in terms of financial support, humanitarian support, helping those people arriving in Ottawa as well, fleeing war, pushing our government to provide more. The Canadian government just announced a lot of winter gear for Ukrainian soldiers, which we're very thankful for, which will help them be able to survive the cold winter. So all these things are very important, but we know that this is going to take, even if the war ends in the next few months, we know this is going to be another decade of rebuilding the country, rebuilding buildings, schools, hospitals, infrastructure. We know it's a long haul, and as sad as it is, it's going to take will still be lasting a little while here.
We speak with representatives as well that are concerned about obviously what's happening in Afghanistan. We know, that the Canadian government, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, committed to having 40,000 Afghans come to Canada. We know we're only sort of about halfway there. Is it also the case in terms of bringing people from Ukraine to Canada? Are you feeling that has been sort of delayed or backlogged as well, the numbers of people we can bring?
Well, the really big difference was between the Afghans and Syrians were designated as full refugees when they came to Canada, and they received those benefits, as they very much rightly should. And there should be a stronger press in the Canadian government in terms of helping people flee Afghanistan. Those who those numbers, especially those who supported and worked with our Canadian diplomats in Afghanistan. In terms of the Ukrainians, they are not under a refugee program. They do not receive the same benefits. They receive substantially less benefits when they arrive in Canada, but there is not a limit on the amount who can come. So we've seen lots of grassroots organizations, I know even one here in Carleton Place and in Ottawa as well, who have fundraised to bring Ukrainians who are in Poland or in Italy or in Romania, wherever they may be, to Canada under this work authorization and this temporary stay permit in Canada, this temporary visa. So there hasn't really been support for the last few months in terms of the government providing transport to Canada, but once you do arrive here, you are able to stay and work for a number of years. So we're very grateful and thankful for that, but there still is more support to be done on the ground here. But most importantly is needed, the support is needed for Ukraine now, because the faster that we support Ukraine and the more we provide them with the weapons they need, the defense they need, the faster they'll be able to win this war, and the humanitarian crisis can ease and not be such a burden on Canada, the U.S., all of Europe, and the whole Western world.
It certainly has a ripple effect, as you mentioned, across the globe, of course. Has Ukraine been supported enough by countries like Canada, do you think, or is there something more we should be doing at this time?
There has been an overwhelming amount of support for Ukraine, absolutely, but there's definitely more. I think Canada is lagging behind its Five Eyes partners, its G7 partners, and its all of its Western allies. We're seeing good support in terms of, for example, winter gear, some artillery withstands, things like that. And we know that Canada doesn't necessarily have maybe the largest stockpile of equipment, but we know we can buy from other nations and manufacturers to send those to Ukraine. So we need to step up and be, for example, the United States is providing much, much more, and we know that we can't provide dollar for dollar, but per capita, we should be able to be matching the United States and other countries in the EU, the UK, Finland, Sweden, Norway, matching them and doing as much as we possibly can to provide those air defense systems, missiles, and the weapons they need, along with economic assistance as well, to keep their keep their economy afloat and not tank.
Mm-hmm. And Cassian, one thing I know about City News listeners and viewers here on Rogers TV is that, they do step up when asked. Is there something still that we can do? Are you still looking for, for places for people to live, for instance? Are you still looking for, winter clothing and bedding and furniture to get people set up in their homes?
Absolutely. Here locally, people can continue to support in terms of housing. They can go to the Catholic Center for Immigrants, who is coordinating housing opportunities. So they can, by all means, if they're willing to open their doors to their home, that'd be very much always appreciated. There's other ways they can, of course, donate in terms of furniture. They can go to the UCC Ottawa website, ottawaucc.ca, and go see some resources there. And they can, of course, always donate to the Canada-Ukraine Foundation, which is a Canadian charity. You'll get a tax receipt for your donation, which does work in Ukraine, that supports humanitarian aid, provides medical assistance, all those kinds of humanitarian needs that Ukrainians need on a daily basis.
The one thing we always hear, and this was, prior to this war, is the Ukrainian people are resilient, are strong. And we have seen that through this. I mean, the tenacity, the people taking up arms that were, marketing directors. It just seems bizarre to me that, people that were in jobs like you and I are fighting in the streets now. Where does that come from, Cassian? Is that just part of who you are as a people?
Well, it is part of just who we are, but we know in terms of history that Ukraine is a very resource-rich and a very important land. And Vladimir Putin looks at Ukraine, and Ukraine looks towards its western neighbors, to Poland, to Romania, and sees these countries that are prospering, that are doing well, have a stable democracy, have free elections just like Ukraine has. But Vladimir Putin feels threatened by that. So he looks at Ukraine and going, he's only there because of authoritarian rule of rigged elections. So he's looking to Ukraine, and if Ukraine is free and prosperous and democratic like it is and continues to be, even though despite this war, Vladimir Putin feels that that's a threat to him. So Ukrainians know exactly what they're fighting for. This isn't the first time that they've had to stand up and have a revolution or fight for their freedom. Mm-hmm. So they know exactly what they're fighting for. They're fighting for democracy. They're fighting to live a peaceful life, not be occupied, not have a state sponsor of terrorism attacking them. And they know exactly what they're fighting for. And if it's one thing to sit idly by, but if you're not fighting for your country and you're not pushing for it every single day, then you shouldn't be deserving to live in a free democratic country. So they know exactly what they're fighting for every single day when they wake up.
Cassian, let's stay in touch, okay?
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me.
Cassian Soltykevich joining us, National Secretary for Ukrainian Canadian Congress. We know it's a very busy news day. We are watching very closely at the Emergencies Act inquiry. Councillor Diane Deans is now in the big seat. We're going to go and listen in for about a minute or two.
With, in my estimation, enough information about the resource requirement. They're just saying we need help and send what you can. And to me, that wasn't good enough. It wasn't clear enough. That's why I ultimately called that meeting on the Saturday.
And how did you know, as the requests were being made police to police, how did you come to know that was the nature of the requests being made?
I was in constant touch with Chief Slowly. We were talking about resources every day, how many were there, how many were coming, how many were going. What was possible with the resources that we had. I mean, we're getting requests from members of council, especially in the impacted areas, to send more resources. We don't have more resources. We have a police service by now that is very tired. We've had people working overtime. They've been working under very stressful conditions. They haven't had any time off. And we know that there is a real need for more assistance.
And at this time, these resources, were they being requested to maintain kind of a tired?
So that was Councillor Diane Deans at the Emergencies Act inquiry. We're going to be following this story very closely. We know there's some interesting testimony already from her today, so you'll want to stay with us here on City News. When we come back, Mark Sutcliffe will be here, mayoral candidate. You'll want to stay with us here on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Yo. Yep. Okay, I'll be there.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, the Lone Star joins us on the show. They're going to be sharing some great recipe ideas using their slow-cooked brisket. And the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum joins us. They're going to be telling us about their brand new edition called Rex, which is a Mars rover prototype. Also on the show, the Day of the Dead Festival is back. We'll give you all the details on that and much more. That's on Thursday's Daytime Ottawa.
Hi, I'm Meg from AIM Fitness, and I'm here with my buddy Fit Finley. Join us every week for Fit Over 50. We'll take you through some low-impact and high-intensity workouts designed to improve your strength and your balance. All you'll need is a resistance band, some light hand weights, and also your water bottle and a sturdy chair. Tune in right here on Rogers TV and let us be part of your weekly routine.
I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counselor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Mayoral candidate Catherine McKenney was among the 7 candidates who chose not to reply to our mayoral survey. Furthermore, they have not attempted to engage in any form of dialogue with the Ottawa Police Association. Catherine McKenney has an extensive history of using harmful and misleading rhetoric against police officers. They have a voting record at council supporting proposals that would defund police. Catherine McKenney's support for the Ottawa Coalition for a People's Budget would lead to the effective withdrawal of police from responding to over 400,000 calls for service by Ottawa residents, all at a time when property and violent crime are increasing.
That was the interim president, Brian Samuel, from the Ottawa Police Association. You know, when the question was asked earlier on the Talkback Hour with David Smith, is it the position of the Police Association to be getting involved in politics? You know, ironically, in their statement, they indicate, you know, we're not going for a certain candidate. We're not going to be recommending somebody, but yet they gave that statement in regards to the candidate, Catherine McKenney. We have asked Catherine for their statement. We actually asked them on the show today. Unfortunately, they weren't able to join us on the Sam Laprade show, but they did indicate they would be sending us a statement. So we're waiting for that statement. We will share it with you as soon as we get it. So that's an important piece today. We know how busy it is for mayoral candidates right now. It is super busy for them. They are working probably 18, 19 hours a day. We are waiting for Mark Sutcliffe to join us. He, of course, is a mayoral candidate. We know the sort of top 3 candidates right now are Catherine McKenney, Mark Sutcliffe, and Bob Chiarelli. We've seen them do a number of different debates. We know that they've been sparring in the media about their different platforms. So we're awaiting Mark Sutcliffe joining us. And we want to talk as well with Mark about the plan for rural Ottawa. He put out a plan, as well as Catherine McKenney has put out a plan talking specifically to rural residents. And we know this is the last week of the campaign. We are 5 days away from October 24th, and it is a very important day. And of course, Mark Sutcliffe joins me now. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Good. The campaign is heating up, Mark. We're 5 days away. A lot of talk today regarding the police. We know Brian Samuel, interim president for the Ottawa Police Association, has come out indicating that Catherine McKenney is not a choice that they are recommending, but also indicating that they don't want to get involved in politics. What are your thoughts on this statement?
Well, I'll let the statement speak for itself. I think that what I will say is, it's clear that Catherine McKenney in the past has spoken out in favor of defunding the police, of reducing the police budget, and is supported by a lot of people who have talked about reducing the police budget significantly by hundreds of millions of dollars. And what I hear when I knock on doors throughout Ottawa is that people are concerned about public safety and they don't want to see the police budget cut. They don't want to defund the police. They want to see the right kinds of investments made. They want a better police service. They want better leadership from the police service, but they also want to make sure that the police service is properly funded and that we're addressing some of the rising areas of crime in our city, including gun violence, violence against women, hate and bias crimes, some of the issues that have happened in downtown and the Byward Market. So we need a strong police service if we're going to have a safe city. And I think what you're hearing from some people is they're concerned that Catherine McKenney will reduce the police budget instead of investing in emergency services.
And we saw, Mark, as well in this statement from Brian Samuel that he indicated 7 candidates answered the survey that they sent out. And this is very common. Associations, community associations and different organizations, climate groups, etc., will send candidates surveys to kind of get to know them, right? So they've indicated out of the 14 candidates, 7 of them answered the survey and 7 did not. Did you answer the survey, Mark?
Yes, I did.
And what were some of the questions in that survey?
Well, I don't remember. I've answered so many of them. I can't remember the number, but Sam, as you said, every organization in Ottawa has sent us these surveys, so I don't remember all the details of that particular survey, but obviously it was about the kind of commitment that each of the candidates was willing to make towards public safety in our community. And as I've said at the doors, I've heard this as a significant priority. I met with residents in Canada and Barrhaven who have had their cars stolen right out of their driveways. Mm-hmm. I've heard from people in other parts of the city who are worried about speeding in their neighborhoods and street racing on the roads near their homes where their kids might be riding their bikes. And so there's a lot of concern about safety, and that's not to say that there aren't issues that we need to fix about our police service. There are, but the population of Ottawa is going to grow by 500,000 people over the next 25 years. We're not going to keep Ottawa safe by reducing the police budget at a time when certain types of crime are rising and when the population is growing significantly. Mm-hmm.
We know a big discussion item in the last number of weeks as well is the new police chief. We know that for a number of months that search has been underway to really find a new person for that position. We know interim police chief Steve Bell has been doing a good job. We know obviously Peter Slowly is no longer in that position, and finding a new police chief is a really big deal. So we understand Catherine McKenney and Bob Shirelli have come out and said, we should be waiting to hire that police chief. And you've indicated, let's go ahead and hire that police chief. They're indicating there might be a conflict of interest there because Councillor Eli El-Shantiri is a co-chair of your campaign. What do you say to that?
So Eli El-Shantiri is one of 24 honorary co-chairs of my campaign, including many great local representatives like Jenna Suds and Marie-France Lalonde and Madeleine Meilleur and many others. And it's an honorary role. I've not spoken to Eli El-Shantiri about the hiring of the new police chief or any of the work of the Police Services Board. The Police Services Board is independent of City Council. So it sounds really good to say, we should wait until the new council and mayor are in place to hire a new police chief. But it's actually not the decision of the mayor and city council who the next police chief is, there's an independent body called the Police Services Board that does the hiring, and it's there for a reason, and we've got to respect that independence and not bring any sort of political interference into that. I don't think we should be politicizing this appointment. We've been without a police chief for 7 months now, and we need a new police chief. And if the Police Services Board wants to consult with whoever the new mayor is and whoever some of the new members of council are next week after the election is over, that's their option, and I'm open to that. But I don't want to delay this process any further, and I'm not sure on a practical level what it means to wait until the new city council is elected. Is Catherine suggesting that we should start the whole process over again with a new city council, or just pause it and then go ahead with the same decision anyway, but do it after the new city council's in place? I'm not sure what it would accomplish to wait. What I do know is it would be politicizing that appointment. It should not be an appointment that's driven by politics. It should be an appointment that's driven by the accountability that's there already with the Police Services Board. And in terms of any sort of allegation of conflict of interest, I would point out that there is a city councillor on the Police Services Board who's part of the hiring process right now, who is supporting Catherine McKenney's campaign. Jeff Leeper is a member of the Police Services Board and has endorsed Catherine McKenney. So there's really strong representation on the Police Services Board. There's some really good people on that 7-member board. And I trust them to do a good job with the hiring process, and I don't know why Catherine McKenney doesn't trust them or wants to pause this process. It's not a short process. It's a process that's been well underway for a few months already.
Agreed.
And we've got to respect that.
Agreed. It certainly has been a long process. And quite honestly, I think the residents of Ottawa, after everything that we've been through, deserve to have a police chief, one that's a permanent police chief moving forward very quickly. I don't think, this is something that we need to have.
Otherwise, it could be January or February or March before there's a new police chief in place, and then we'd be going a year without a permanent police chief. And that's there's a reason we have an independent police services board. It's so that these decisions are not politicized. It's not up to the mayor and city council to hire the police chief. It's up to the police services board. They have a job to do, and we should respect that independence and respect the governance model that we have in place here.
Agreed. We only have about a minute left. I spent a lot of time in rural Ottawa this past weekend, and boy, we're living a beautiful region. And speaking, of course, everybody, as soon as they chat with me and realize I'm part of radio or the news, they're always saying, what's happening in terms of the election? Rural residents sometimes really feel left out. Mark, what are you saying to rural residents right now? We only have about 45 seconds.
Yeah. So I've been listening to rural residents throughout my career as a radio host. They're a big part of the audience that listen to my show throughout my career. I know their needs and concerns. I listen to them regularly. I've spent a lot of time in rural communities over the course of this campaign. I was at a barn dance in Navan on the weekend. I was visiting people in North Gore just yesterday, talking to farmers and other residents there. So I know their concerns. They don't want a downtown approach to things going forward, and that's what Catherine McKenney will provide. They want someone who understands all of Ottawa, including and especially the rural parts of Ottawa, and that's what I can deliver for them.
I think the sentence that will stay with me today, Mark, is that you were at a barn dance. So that's going to definitely stay with me for a long time. Listen, I know how busy you are. You've got 5 days to go. This campaign is really heating up. We wish you the best on the campaign trail.
Thanks, Sam. Good luck with the new time slot.
Thank you so much. Mark Sutcliffe joining us, mayoral candidate. You're watching us on Rogers TV or listening to us on City News. Hope you stay with us. Stay with us, everyone.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
It isn't the heavy trays that make the job difficult. or the fast pace you need to keep up. It's not working another double because someone called in sick. What makes the job tough is the moment you realize a customer has had enough and you have to make that decision not to overserve. Refusing service isn't personal, it's the law. We know it's not easy, but we're counting on you to keep us all safe. Thank you, servers, for doing the tough job.
I'm Julian Armour from Music and Beyond. Join us for a new show this spring on Rogers called Music and Beyond Presents.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
My name is Joel Tamas, this is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, October 19th. Good morning. I am Damilola Onime. Right now in Ottawa, mainly sunny, 5 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 7. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. You saw it every time you went into the grocery store last month. The price for food was seemingly more expensive again, and you weren't wrong in that perception. Now, StatScan says food price inflation was up by the most in more than 40 years. City News senior business editor Mike Eppel reports.
The cost to put food on the table was rising at its fastest pace since 1981 in September, an increase of 11.5% in the basket of goods tracked by Stats Canada. Bakery prices up by close to 15%, fresh fruits and vegetables up by nearly 12%, as the ripple effect of rising transportation costs and agricultural commodities sent grocery bills skyrocketing. The overall headline inflation rate for the country fell slightly for a third month in a row to 6.9%, which was again above forecast, driven slightly lower by a retreat for some gas prices in only certain provinces. British Columbia, for example, last month had record prices at the pumps, and diesel prices also remain elevated. A week from today, the Bank of Canada will be raising interest rates for a sixth time this year. The only question is, by how much? Will they go 75 or maybe another full 100 basis points, still fighting against inflationary pressures? At the City News Business Center, I'm Mike Eppel.
With the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
This unsettled air mass stays with us for another day, even into Thursday as well, and that means we will have some showers to deal with at times. Cool temperatures, too. The guaranteed high just 9 degrees, drop to 3 for the low. A strong wind tonight. We'll get into some light rain, may even mix with some snow. Tomorrow, showers, strong wind out of the southwest, and the high about 9 degrees. That's the guaranteed high today, 9.
City News time is 11:03. The Upper Ottawa Valley Police are investigating a hit-and-run collision in Pembroke. The incident happened at about 7 p.m. yesterday at the corner of McKay and Mary Street. Police say a silver Ford Escape SUV hit a pedestrian, but they were not seriously injured. The driver is described as a dark-haired female between 30 to 40 years old. Anyone with information of the incident is asked to contact the OPP. The Ottawa Police is advising residents of an ongoing scam targeting people seeking escort services and on dating sites. Police say people are being asked to send self-gratification videos to the person they have been chatting to on a dating site or escort service. When they do, the suspect starts to threaten to expose the video to the victim's family and friends unless Bitcoin or cash is paid. Officers say reports of extortion and threat of this kind have doubled in the last month, so they are advised is to set your privacy controls on all social media platforms to the highest settings. And if you do receive a threat, stop all communication with the extortionist and report the incident to police. I am Damilola Unime, and for news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, today the Consumer Price Index rose 6.9% on a year-over-year basis, decelerating from 7% gain in August, marking the third consecutive monthly slowdown in headline inflation. Lower gasoline prices were mostly responsible for the deceleration. This is certainly something that food banks and homeless shelters and any nonprofit that is dealing with food insecurity knows all too well. We wanted to touch base today with Karen Secord. Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Karen, of course, Executive Director at Parkdale Food Center. The news today about the Consumer Price Index probably isn't a surprise to you, Karen. What are you seeing in terms of food insecurity in the Parkdale area?
Well, all our programs serve people all across the city, and we've seen a 41% increase since August in the number of people using our grocery program. Right now, in our survey we did in 2022, 63% of people identify as being severely food insecure.
It certainly has been a challenging time, Karen, for so many, and this is such a pivotal time in our community. What are you hearing from people, in terms of the election and questions that they're asking municipal candidates?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that this morning because right now we have the National Advisory Council on Poverty here at Parkdale Food Center. They've just finished speaking to our neighbors at our coffee and conversation, and now they're speaking to us and three other organizations. And what we heard this morning and what we've been hearing is that people don't have enough income, that the prices are so high and income isn't rising. Many of the people we see work. The minimum wage is far too low. We know that the living wage in Ottawa is $18.90 an hour, so $15.50 certainly doesn't provide enough income to provide your basic needs. Their mental health is suffering. The number of people we're seeing who have lost their housing and are coming to us, grown men in tears, sleeping in doorways. We've never seen that before.
Mm-hmm. What's it like, Karen, on a day-to-day basis for you and your team? I mean, I think about maybe 5 years ago visiting Parkdale. You gave me a great tour of the center at that time. And at that time, Karen, I think about, how stretched you were. I can't imagine 5 years later, and you add a pandemic in there.
Yeah, so we've had to grow our team. We've created a whole advocacy team where, because when the pandemic happened, we quickly realized that we couldn't have people in to have meals, to do daily check-ins with people. And a lot of people don't have any money to buy any food. And so we're providing them with the bulk of the food that they have, every day. And so, we had to create programs for that. We had to create touch points so that we could stay in touch with people, and that required staff. And it's very difficult to find funding for staff. And so we've had to raise more money, which has been, really, really difficult. And people, even our neighbors who use our services, they think the government funds us. We get $100,000 a year from the city. We have to apply for grants, but we need to raise, $1 million a year from fundraising. And that's hard. It's really, really hard. And we do good work.
You do, absolutely. And, and I think when I think about food banks, and this is where the shift certainly has happened in my mind, I always think about food banks where somebody has received either, some government assistance or pay, and that the food bank was there to bridge that time. But the reality is, what I'm hearing from you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's no bridge anymore. It's 30 or 31 days of help.
Yeah, that is nonsense, and so this idea of emergency food is really nonsense. People are getting on Ontario Work $733 a month. I would challenge any of your listeners to try to survive on that. So how do people end up like that? They don't have enough hours in to get employment insurance when they lose their jobs. They have some kind of a health issue. They lose their job, so then they lose their living situation, and then they can't find another living situation. And if you're disabled, can you live on $1,227 a month? Probably not. Can you find subsidized housing? Probably not. It's probably going to take you years to find that. And a one-bedroom apartment in Ottawa is something like $1,500 a month. Mm-hmm. So we are legislating poverty in this province, in this country, and then we're asking people to run around and try to fill in the gaps. And we're expecting charities like us to fill in those gaps, and then not give us any resources to do that. Mm-hmm. People would be much healthier. Our healthcare costs would go down if we just made sure that people had enough income, so the means and opportunity to thrive.
Mm-hmm. And, once again, this municipal election, has anybody, candidates sort of come to you and try to make this a top priority? Because often, as you know, Karen, during elections, the most vulnerable tend to not be even noticed. And we talk about issues that are above that. I find this campaign particularly has talked about affordable housing, but is it enough? Is it enough attention from the municipal candidates, either for mayor or council, on food insecurity in the capital of this country?
Well, we need to talk about social services, and the previous administration has been sorely lacking in putting money towards their social service funding, and it has been shocking how little money has been put into social services or into emergency relief for social services. I mean, one of our programs during the storm on the May 24 long weekend, Parkdale Food Center had to put in $100,000 to make sure that over 18,000 meals went out to people across the city, because so many people lost, as you know, their power. Mm-hmm. And so here is a charity putting in that amount of money, and we waited months to be reimbursed by the city. So it's food is a human right. Housing is a human right, and those are enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And so I would say that all three levels of government have abdicated their responsibilities for food and housing, and they're not. They're not addressing how they would fund social services going into the next administration.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be certainly an interesting election. It's going to be interesting to see, where this city goes, because as you and I both know, Karen, you know that I worked in the homeless sector for close to a decade. It's pay me now or pay me later. Right, so it's
and there's so many statistics about this that we watch people. They come, they're okay, they're looking for housing, and we watch them go downhill. Their mental health go downhill when they can't get what they need. We're calling shelters. There's nowhere for people to be. 350 families living homeless for up to 2 years. It is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. We can do better. We're paying $6,000 a month for some families to live in motel rooms.
Well, that's what I don't understand. Honestly, sometimes when we have these conversations, I hang up with a guest and I think, is this Canada?
I know.
It's hard to believe.
I know. So right now, I just stepped away, but we do have the National Advisory Council on Poverty here, and they are an independent body, and you probably got the press release yesterday that they released their third report with recommendations. And so this morning, I mean, they spoke to many of our neighbors, came out to speak to them about what their challenges are, and they sat and listened, and now they're listening to leaders from Somerset West, from Salis, from Causeway, and from Parkdale. And I'm sure what they're hearing is about funding. I mean, we're forgotten. You know, we shouldn't have to be begging for money and then hiring staff to be able to report back that we're actually doing the work. You know, we're doing the work, and we are struggling and overburdened right now. I mean, we have a program that we started during COVID called Cooking for a Cause, where we are paying restaurants, our caterers, 20 of them we've kept in business, and they're making up to 5,000 meals a week for 31 social service agencies, good, wholesome, chef-prepared meals. And because the province has decided that that no one needs social service relief fund money again, all of that is going to end.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Karen. Thanks so much for your time, and let's stay connected, okay, Karen?
Yeah, absolutely. Come for lunch.
Thank you. Look forward to it. Karen Secord joining us, Executive Director at Parkdale Food Centre. And if I went for lunch, I would certainly be making a donation, and I'll make sure to do that with Karen. We certainly appreciate that. Karen Secord joining us, Executive Director at Parkdale Food Centre. When we come back, we have more for you. Of course, we're watching very closely as well the Emergencies Act inquiry. Councillor Diane Deans is in the hot seat today. We're definitely going to be following that for you. Want to stick with Rogers TV and City News all day. Stay with us.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
It's about sharing and caring. It's about doing and belonging. It's about living life to its fullest. And it's about laughing out loud. We are L'Arche Canada, and we're about witnessing and sharing the gifts of all people. Learn more about us today.
We were born in Canada. We spoke English. On the streets, we weren't welcome. But on the field, we were the Asahi. Vancouver's champions. Everyone cheered for us. Our people had a voice. Then Canada declared war on Japan. They took us from our homes, called us enemies, forced us into camps. But we brought the game with us. Baseball helped get us through the internment.
The Vancouver Asahi were among the 22,000 Japanese Canadians interned during the Second World War. The team never played another game.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Thank you so much for spending time with us here on City News. We wanted to obviously keep in touch with the Emergencies Act inquiry. Diane Deans is testifying right now. Lots of interesting information coming from her. You have to remember, not only a counselor, but she was also the chair of the Ottawa Police Services Board. So, the perspective there is definitely an interesting one. And lots of different, people that are going to be testifying coming up in the, coming days and weeks. We know Patricia Ferguson, Deputy Chief for Ottawa Police Service, will also be testifying at some point. We know Chief Peter Slowly. We know Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. Missing on the list, Premier Doug Ford. So this is going to be really interesting to see if we go through this entire inquiry and not have the Premier be part of this. Would be really, really interesting. We wanted to get caught up today with Mike Lorenz. He is an author, and he's joining me now. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Sam.
Tell me about this book. I understand you've written a book called The Drive.
Yes, first, thank you for having me on your platform. It's an honor.
Thank you.
So, The Drive was written because, first, my dad always asked, you should write a book. He thought my creativity was way off the chart, and he said, you should have something tangible like a real novel. So that was the first drive to writing The Drive.
Really interesting.
The second thing is the power of positive energy. I think people don't focus enough on it, and there's an easy way to get results from positive energy. And if you read The Drive, you'll get all these hints. It's written as a science fiction novel. The story is amazing, but it's like your favorite movie that you put in to your drive over and over. Mm-hmm. You can't get enough of The Drive. The subtleties of the messages are there to uplift you, to remind you how we live in a wonderful world. And I think this message has to be brought to the surface, and that's why The Drive was written.
It's really interesting to hear, how people and how they start to write. Have you always been interested in writing, Mike?
I'm an engineer, so I write specs and documents all day, and I always found a way to make them as interesting as possible because technical documents can get really, really drab and boring. So yeah, I was always driven to write as best as I could. Mm-hmm. And putting my engineering background aside, writing The Drive brought me in another direction where more focused on people. I don't know if you like superhero stories, but I find the characters are not very relatable.
Right.
My dad always told me what he liked in movies and what was missing. And so I put everything I thought he'd find fascinating in there. And my dad was a fascinating man. He was a pilot in World War II.
Wow.
He was on the other side, so I don't want to make a big story out of that. Mm-hmm. However, I wrote the book in an old school fashion, which means you write about what you know, or else it's just fluff, right? Mm-hmm. You want cake, you don't want just the icing.
Right.
So I believe an author should focus on what he knows, what he believes, what he takes at heart, And what I took at heart for this book was all the parents out there.
Mm-hmm.
You see, if you're a parent, you drive for a better future for your children. So that makes you the hero in my book. That's why you need to read The Drive. We are all the hero in our own life. And the power of positive energy is easy.
Well, I certainly look forward to it, Mike. And where can we find the book?
Well, I have my own website. It's called thedrivemikelorenz.com.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, that's great.
You'll learn more about the book. You'll see where you can buy it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us, and let's get caught up again, okay?
Perfect. Thank you very much for this time.
My pleasure. Mike Lorenz joining us, an author. The book there is The Drive. Sounds very interesting. I wanted to head to St. Joe's Center today and speak with Jennifer Clark. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thank you so much. And I know you have got lots of drive, Jennifer. There's a big event coming up, and I'm so honored to be a part of it. Tell us what St. Joe's Center is doing.
Absolutely. So St. Joe's Women's Center is a day program and registered charity that is dedicated to the needs of low-income and homeless women and their children in a supportive and safe environment. We offer social and educational programs that promote empowerment and autonomy, dignity, in a non-judgmental atmosphere. As many of you know, the COVID-19 pandemic has put an incredible challenge on the team at St. Joe's, and our ability to organize our annual Quality of Life fundraising gala, which is a critical event to sustaining our amazing programs. And this year we are hosting it once again, but scaling back at the event just a little bit with a special twist.
And tell us about the special twist, Jennifer.
Absolutely. As so many of us are aware, Ottawa lost one of its philanthropy leaders this year, Dennis Jackson. Dennis was a tireless supporter of many causes and charities, including the work of St. Joe's Women's Center. He was a Quality of Life recipient in 2019, and he left such an indelible impression on so many people and charitable organizations. With that being said, and of course the blessing of his beautiful wife, Dorothy, this year the Quality of Life event will celebrate the work and community spirit of Dennis Jackson.
It is going to be an incredible night. Give us some of those details, Jennifer.
Absolutely. So our event is being hosted on November 24th. We'll be hosting an evening of fun, fundraising, memories, networking, bringing together business leaders, community supporters, as well as friends and family of the late Dennis Jackson. This is an event of bits, bytes, and bits, and will feature elements of philanthropy, inspiration, and hope for our future. We've got some amazing sponsors on board, such as Royal LePage Team Realty, amazing silent auction prizes from House Playfair McGarry, Shepherd's Fashion, and Courtyard Restaurant. We've got some live music set up and some wine and cheese sommeliers. It should be an evening of great fun and celebration of life.
Well, I certainly look forward to it, and I'm so honored to be hosting that night. Jennifer, as you know, I've known Dennis a very long time, and of course, as you mentioned, his beautiful wife Dorothy certainly is missed, and that night will be spectacular. And I can feel the vibe in the room, which would be a positive one, which was always Dennis Jackson.
That is very, very true. We're honored to be able to honor him and the work that he's done for both the community and for St. Joe's Women's Center. He sat on our Quality of Life fundraising board for many, many years and had so many amazing contributions to us, and he's deeply missed, and we're so honored for sure.
Jennifer, where can people get tickets?
Absolutely. For more information about our upcoming event and for ticket information, lots of information can be found on our website at stjoeswomencenter.org. There is plenty of information on our Facebook page, and of course, folks can always feel free to reach out to me directly at 613-231-6722. Again, that's 613-231-6722. Or my email, which is on our website as well.
Fantastic. Jennifer, thanks for all your hard work on this event.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me.
It's certainly a pleasure. Jennifer Clark joining us from St. Joe's Women's Center, that big event honoring the one and the only, the late Dennis Jackson. You're watching us on Rogers TV, and you're listening on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, some people used the A word. They called it an accident, but it wasn't. An accident implies that no one was at fault. But when someone impaired by alcohol and/or drugs chooses to drive, they're fully responsible for the crash that can result. So please, for the memory of my brother DJ and the thousands of families whose lives have been shattered by impaired drivers, let's drop the A word.
A crash caused by impaired driving is not an accident.
Once upon a time, in a nursery rhyme, there were 3 bears. 1, 2, 3 bears. And they went a-walking in the cool woods a-talk.
Rogers TV invites you to let your imagination roam as we present Ottawa Storytellers. Each week, we'll present a collection of original creative stories and inspirations for children of all ages. Join us for Ottawa Storytellers on Rogers TV.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red.
Right now in Ottawa, mainly sunny, 7 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it is 8. And here's what's making news this hour. Councillor Diane Deans is currently testifying at the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act last winter. Deans, who is also the former chair of the Ottawa Police Services Board, told the inquiry that the chief of police at the time told her he would be very surprised if the protesters stayed on the hill for more than 1 weekend. The inquiry is examining what led to the federal government's emergency declaration on February 14th to deal with the trucker convoy protest. It granted extraordinary powers to police to clear anti-lockdown protesters occupying the area outside of Parliament Hill. Patricia Ferguson, the acting deputy chief of Ottawa Police, will testify later today. Meanwhile, Russia's president has declared martial law in the 4 illegally annexed Ukrainian regions. The declaration gives additional emergency powers to the Russian heads of each region. Draft of the legislation indicates the decree may involve imposing restrictions on travel and public gatherings, tighter censorship, and broader authority for law enforcement agencies. A pair of giant pandas sent as a gift from China have arrived in Qatar ahead of next month's World Cup. They'll live in an indoor enclosure in the desert nation designed to duplicate conditions in the dense forests of China. 800 kilograms of fresh bamboo will be flown in each week to feed the gentle giants. Qatar is expecting some 1.2 million visitors for the month-long World Cup beginning November 20th. City News time is 11:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And we're back. I'm so happy to be with you. Of course, I'm Sam Laprade. We've shifted things a little bit. So if you're looking for Rob Snow, you can wake up with Rob Snow every single weekday from 6 to 9 and then from 9 to 10. David Smith takes your calls for the Talkback Hour. And then I join you from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We do things a little bit different at lunch, so I'm hoping you stay with us and have lunch with us on City News and on Rogers TV. We wanted to spend some time today with Lucille Collard, Liberal MPP for Ottawa-Vanier. Hello, Lucille.
Good morning, Sam. How are you?
Good. I'm certainly watching very closely. I'm sure you are as well. I find it distracting. I want to watch it all day long. The Emergencies Act is such an interesting. The inquiry that's going on right now is interesting. So many interesting players in all of this. One name that's missing off this list of 65 people that are to testify is Premier Doug Ford. Were you surprised about that, Lucille?
Not at all. He was missing in action since day one, so I'm not surprised that, we would not want to come out and try to explain that, because it's quite an unexplainable thing.
But the commissioner, if he wanted him there, he would have subpoenaed him, no?
I believe that's within his power. I don't know that Mr. Ford might have some protection from that, and if that's the case, I'm disappointed that he wasn't called to testify to explain himself.
Well, I certainly remember, and I remember covering it obviously very closely here. That's all we did for basically a month on City News, is follow, the so-called Freedom Convoy and all of the challenges that the city faced. And there were times, certainly in the beginning, where, on Twitter, and there was a lot of criticism of the Premier saying, where is Doug Ford? Does he realize Ottawa is part of Ontario? It only seemed to get noticed by Doug Ford when the challenges started to happen in Windsor, and the bridges were being shut down, and the impact to the economy was happening. Did you feel the same way, Lucille?
Oh, totally. And that was totally, my life was turned upside down during this whole occupation. It occupied my days and my night. It was all I was doing, and I couldn't understand that Mr. Ford wasn't following the news, that he wasn't coming out to show any kind of support, that he didn't even come to Ottawa to even see by himself what was happening. And it's not for lack of getting called to do so. We intervened, like myself and the Ontario Liberal Caucus have intervened, like from January 31st, that was day 4 of the occupation, where we issued the press release. The whole Ottawa caucus issued a press release asking Ford to come and intervene. We did it again by sending a letter on February 4th, another press release on February 7th, February 10th, February 14th. It was not for lack of trying to get him to pay attention. But as been said before, and I really believe that Mr. Ford has different values and doesn't really take that Ottawa is part of Ontario. And for him, economic interest is more important than people's, and that's what transpired from this whole occupation. Because he didn't pay attention to people suffering in Ottawa. But when the Ambassador Bridge became an economical issue, then that's when he thought it was worth having a look.
Well, it was certainly an interesting time, right? Because we were about 4 or 5 months away from the provincial election, which took place, as you know, on June the 2nd. So there's lots of speculation that he didn't want to sort of get his hands dirty during that time. And then, the response from him during that time when he was asked, why didn't you come? He said, well, I didn't want the focus to be taken off the resolution of this. It causes, some security challenges and all that type of thing if the Premier does come. So he said, well, I don't want the focus to be taken off of the resolution, and that's why he didn't come. Do you buy that explanation?
No, and hiding is not showing leadership. And that's what Mr. Ford has been doing. He's been hiding from the whole crisis instead of assuming his role as Premier of the province of Ontario that needs to care for all Ontarians. And the fact that he didn't show up in Ottawa, is a big indication that he didn't understand fully what was happening. Because, people that were not close enough to what was happening, I've seen that. People had a hard time understanding the suffering that people were going through, the impact it was having on our businesses and on people's life, everyday's life. And I'm happy to see that the Commission is actually bringing that to light, because I think that the witnesses so far have made it very clear about the reality that people were going through and the lack of involvement of the government. And people had lost faith in the province leadership. They didn't come to the tripartite table to try to work in a solution, and it took the Ambassador Bridge again for them to care.
Well, and I have to be honest, I think even just this 5 days into the inquiry, it's really come to light, Lucille, that a lot of the different challenges that we faced was because of the lack of collaboration between, whether it be police forces, levels of government, individuals. And at the end of this inquiry, it's going to be really interesting, because there's nothing worse than an inquiry than when the recommendations come back that it sits on a shelf. Right? So we have to see, when this comes down in February of 2023, then there has to be action taken. Because quite honestly, from my perspective, I mean, I covered this, I know it inside out. This is embarrassing. This is embarrassing as a capital to be this uncoordinated.
Yes, and like I said, I was going through that. Like every day I was having phone calls with elected officials led by Mathieu Fleury, the police services, and the bylaws and the BIAs, were telling us, everybody was asking, like, what's happening? Why is nothing happening underground? Why are they not doing anything? And what we kept hearing is that the resources weren't there to coordinate an action to make it stop. And that's because the government didn't work together. And again, by the time at the end of it, when the province finally stepped up and sent some police officers, then that's when they had the numbers and they were able to make it stop. It took 2 days and it was over. Mm-hmm. But it should have been done at the beginning, not waiting for 3 weeks for this to happen.
It's certainly really interesting to sort of have this look back. Who are you hoping to hear from the most? Who are you watching really closely out of the list of people that have been listed or people that have already spoke? Is there somebody that you're really interested to hear their testimony?
Well, I'm gonna listen to the whole thing. I think everybody has their own perspective, and it's very interesting and important to understand that. So I think that so far what's been said, for me it was a bit even difficult as I listened to people bringing back. I was reliving, those very difficult days, and I just remember how I felt every day and just praying for something to happen, as everybody was, and. And as you said, once the result of the inquiry come back and the recommendation, we need to take action upon that. And I've been very vocal at the Assembly when we returned to the Assembly on February 22nd, because we weren't sitting during the most part of the occupation. But my first opportunity was to talk to the government. I used every opportunity in the House on several occasions to call on the government. I asked the Justice Policy Committee to do a study to use their resources into the role of the government and why this was allowed to go on for so long. So we need to take that seriously, and politicians will have an important role in making sure that these recommendations are being brought forward, and that we insist that there is some kind of action taken.
Do you think on February, I can't remember the exact date, I think it's February 3rd, do you think on that date or in the month of February, when we receive the recommendations from the commissioner, the inquiry is closed and the report is issued, do you think at the end of the day that it will be important that the Emergencies Act be called at that time? Do you think that when we look back on it, that it was the right thing for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to call the Emergencies Act?
Well, I think the hearings are not completed, so I think we need to hear all the aspects of it and the components. I mean, some powers were existing. It was more, there was a question of resources, available resources. So into the legality of, bringing in the emergency power, I think that I still need to hear a lot more. But I'm very also disappointed that Mr. Ford had the nerve to say when he was in Ottawa that he was totally collaborating and working shoulder to shoulder with the other levels of government. When, Mayor Watson had to write to him that every elected official, except for their caucus members on the Conservative side, we had to write to them and to the Premier to try to get his attention. For him to say that he was collaborating and working shoulder to shoulder, that's very disappointing statement, because it doesn't reflect the reality.
Appreciate your time always. Thank you, Lucille.
Thank you so much, Sam. Have a great day.
Thank you. Lucille Collard joining us, Liberal MPP from Ottawa-Vanier, talking about the Emergencies Act inquiry and one name missing off the list. And we looked and looked and looked. We looked through all 65 names. One name that wasn't there, Premier Doug Ford. Why? Does he not have a role? We're going to be following this story very closely on City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, the Lone Star joins us on the show. They're going to be sharing some great recipe ideas using their slow-cooked brisket. And the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum joins us. They're going to be telling us about their brand new edition called Rex, which is a Mars rover prototype. Also on the show, the Day of the Dead Festival is back. We'll give you all the details on that and much more. That's on Thursday's Daytime Ottawa.
Putting the focus on smaller businesses and less larger sized businesses, as it's very different for people like me that are like literal small business owners where we've bootstrapped money and we don't have a lot of funding, and to be able to help us through that. There has been some help for us, but I think it would be a greater opportunity to see us thrive through the next couple of years.
$20. And Maggie, Mrs. Calabash, come into my kitchen. A quick mayonnaise, egg yolks, garlic, Dijon mustard, lemon juice, olive oil, immersion blender. Go down, come up. Voila, mayonnaise. Boom, 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 boom. $20. $20. Yeah.
Monday, October 24th is Municipal Election Day in Ontario, an important election to set the post-pandemic course for our community. Turn to Rogers TV for the local results, your comprehensive coverage as the votes are counted. Tune in to find out who's heading to Municipal Council. On election night, Rogers TV leads with local.
I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
What do you get when you combine a big personality of Wendy Boomer of Country 92.3 and our host, Sam Laprade?
Lots of fast talking and laughter. This is what you need to know with Wendy Boomer on the Sam Laprade Show.
Well, I have to say it's my favorite time of the week, and it's happening on Wednesdays now.
Yeah, you're making me get up a little early.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Wendy Boomer, of course, from Country 92.3. We talk about everything that's happening in the Valley. But can I go downtown for a second? Downtown in the capital?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So last night, my daughter and I, Avery, who is going to be 15 soon, we went to Broadway across Canada, went to the beautiful NAC, and we saw Mean Girls.
Oh, and how good was it?
Okay, seriously, it blew all my expectations. Mm-hmm. It was so spectacular. First of all, the cast was perfectly cast.
Yeah.
Like they were exactly who they played was exactly who they should have played.
Uh-huh.
The choreography, the music, the theme, how they brought a movie, of course, from the 90s into this time, mm-hmm. right? With the social media references and all of that, but it didn't exist in the 90s, right?
Right.
And it was so funny because it was almost like we saw ourselves about 100 times because there was like moms and daughters there, right?
Yeah.
And on a school night, right?
Right.
So it was a pretty big deal, and the place was packed, and it's playing right, I think, till Sunday. And I was saying to a couple of girlfriends, I was like, no, it's worth it. Like, take your kid, like go to the NAC, invest the time and the money, because it's a big thing to go, but at the same time, amazing memories. We had so much fun.
So I am a big lover of musicals, but I have not ever seen this one. What kind of like songs are in it? Do they tap into the 90s stuff that's familiar, or
no? You know what? It's all just music from the actual play.
Okay.
It's there's nothing we would hear that you would be like, oh, I heard that on the radio.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all
they've written all new songs for this and everything.
All new stuff.
Cool.
And of course, the place was filled with people wearing pink.
Yeah.
I was probably the only person not wearing pink. My mom's like, or my daughter was like, you should have worn pink, Mom, but she was decked out in pink, and it was a wave of pink, and you could just see it was a lot of girlfriends that got together to go, and you could see, some guys, on date nights and stuff. They weren't wearing pink. But you could just see it was really one of those performances that can really bridge generations, right? It was because I remember Mean Girls, of course, because it was from the 90s, and here's my kid who was born in 2007 enjoying Mean Girls, right? So it was fantastic.
Well, on the flip side of things, I took my parents, to Iron Maiden last week.
Fantastic.
My father was the only one without an Iron Maiden shirt on.
Right. That's so funny.
And it was a riot.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. We were at the brew table that night, and there were 6 guys that were just walking in as we were walking out, and they all had Iron Maiden t-shirts on, and they were all in their 50s, and they all thought they were all that in a bag of chips. I got to tell you, they thought they were like the coolest guys in the room. It was awesome.
For anybody who's never seen it, that is a theater show. That's what that is. It's musical theater.
For sure.
And that's all it is. It's stories being told in music, a scene change and costume change. Every single song the stage changed.
It's incredible. It
was next level.
Listen to us talking about what's happening. Like, think about what we've been through the last 2.5 years, and listen to the vibe we have. Like, it is exciting right now.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of stuff, of course, happening in the Valley, all sorts of stuff happening in the country music scene.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you're hearing.
We are actually super busy lately with upcoming shows, which I'm so excited about. First of all, Tim and the Glory Boys. These guys have been CCMA nominated, and they are just a riot. But think stand-up bass fiddles, like kind of that old school sound as well. But they're performing at the Cedarview Alliance Church.
Oh, that's a beautiful church.
So that is going to be something totally different for anybody who has seen them before, and for anybody who hasn't seen them. What an intimate setting to check them out. Cool. So that's coming up on November 6th, and I'm really excited about that one.
Awesome.
And the following week at the Bronson Center, Tennille Towns is back.
Aww.
And I think you should take Avery to that one. She is so incredibly talented. She ended up walking away with 6 CCMA awards this year.
Wow.
But totally deserving, It's not one of those things where it's just like, oh, she's the it thing or the cool thing, and that's why. No, she was touring the entire planet. She hand writes thank you letters to her fans with lyrics written out on them, and she actually... her acoustic guitar is designed all in her own doodles, and so she duplicates those on paper and sends those to her fans. She is just that true star who, with all the love and feels as well. So she puts on a killer show. And I think, again, just with everything that's gone on in her life in the last couple of years and the recognition she rightfully deserves, it's just going to be that much more of a show because, she gets to just play more music.
I love that. I was watching a video the other day, and it was Carrie Underwood performing, and of course her handsome husband Mike Fisher and her 2 little boys, and they were blowing kisses at their mom. Honestly, my heart melted. It was like, how sweet is that? Yeah, very, very
and
sweet.
she's a pro. She knows how to keep it together.
Absolutely. I'd be melting, right? I think one of them had fallen asleep, which I thought was really cute during Mom's concert. But country music, there's just something about country music that is that relatable piece, like you were talking about as well, right?
And imagine seeing Carrie Underwood performing live in Nashville during the CMA Awards. We have a chance for all of our listeners and yours even to actually head to the CMAs in Nashville. That's coming up in November. And courtesy of tripcentral.ca. We've got hotel, flights, everything, and you'll be there at the awards in person.
Wow.
Which is so cool. I've been lucky enough to attend several different awards, but mostly in Canada. This is like the country music awards that you want to be at, and it's so easy. Just go to our website, 923country.com, and enter to win.
Look at you. You're so hip.
I wish I was going, but
all the cool stuff.
But if you win, you have to report back to us. That is the main thing.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Have you had a chance? Have you put the motorcycle away already?
Well, it's here.
Okay.
I rode it here last night, actually, before we went to the Sens game, because a bunch of us went last night and did a carpool. But it's not in the best of shape right now, so I think we might have to call it a season.
But
it's a beautiful time of year to get out there if we've got just a little bit of sunshine still and see all these beautiful colors.
Well, and they were saying as well that the leaves are particularly beautiful. I thought it was just me, but there's actually science behind the fact that because we haven't had a frost, but there's been low temperatures, that the leaves actually have stayed longer and are more vibrant and, all of that. So I wasn't just losing my mind, because I said to my daughter the other day, the leaves are stunning this year. She goes, yeah, you say that every year, Mom, you know. But I really have noticed how beautiful they are. So the Senators game, how was it?
Oh, it was great. I mean, what a game.
Yeah, a win for the Senators.
Holy crap, that was incredible. So, I'm somebody who will admit that I don't go to a lot of hockey games, but that was a hockey game. That was the game to be at.
For sure.
And it was the crowd, though, for the season home opener, like that was... You could tell that they fed the players, because right off the bat, I think it was in the first 5 minutes, we had 2 goals. It was just ridiculous. So
amazing.
It was really great game.
Just another example of just, hopefully life coming back. And not that we're thinking that COVID's over, because it isn't, right? But it's being cautious. It's being out there. If you want to mask up, you mask up.
Yep.
If, obviously everybody's washing their hands. I mean, I don't think we've ever lost that message. That will carry us through for sure. And, but, certainly it's great to see the community come back, because we know when there's hockey games happening and concerts and anything happening, it benefits the restaurants and it benefits, so many other sectors when people are out and about.
Yeah, and then again, being at the Canadian Tire Centre twice in 1 week,
right?
With them still dealing with some of their staffing issues and whatnot, and having these things in place to just speed things up so that we can still fill the seats.
Right.
But, with basically the purses is the big one, right?
Yes.
You don't bring your big purse or whatever, but you could tell everybody got the memo. I mean, there was not a purse in sight last night.
That's good. That's good.
Right? Just all the ladies just bringing their phone and, getting those phone wallets or whatever, and voila. So that it just made everything easier on those who are working there as well, and being able to all come back together. It was just great.
Thinking about purses, my mom's purse has to weigh 12 pounds. I don't know what she carries.
Is it a Mary Poppins purse? You can just pull a lamp out of there.
It feels like it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it is. I was just thinking about when you're talking about purses, I'm like, oh my heavens, what I would find in my mother's purse.
Yeah, she would not be able to bring that one in.
No, she would not. And she wonders why her back is sore. It's one of those. I always love catching up with you. Always love chatting about what's happening in the Valley. I don't know if you know, but there's a very special show, Election Night. So Rob Snow and I will be here. Our whole news team actually will be here covering, of course, election 2022, a very important election in our community and in the Valley. We're going to be covering all of the results, of course, heading into the Valley and tell you who's going to be representing your community at council. This has never been a more important election, and I really hope everybody comes out to vote. We know here in Ottawa, 12% of eligible voters have cast a ballot, but we need to obviously get that number way up there. It was only 42% in 2018.
Wow.
We have to surpass that by a lot. This is a very important time. So hopefully you'll be tuning in.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes. And I've already placed my vote as well, because I am very lucky. One of these sites is actually in my condo building.
Oh, that's
so there is no excuse.
There's no excuse. And honestly, all those advance polls really did make it easy for people.
Yeah.
But coming up, check out your voter card. October 24th is the big day. We know there's been some acclamations in the Valley, but still a very exciting election. Certainly very hot and spicy here in the capital. We're following all of the mayoral debate campaign issues that are happening today. One of them, of course, being the police issue. You'll want to lock it in to City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
Going back in, okay?
It's a new season of The New Fly Fisher on Rogers TV.
Join me for Season 3 of Paula Roy's Favorite Foods. Whew, that was a lot. I think I need a nap.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news, traffic, and weather for Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News 1011 everywhere.
It's Wednesday, October 19th. Good afternoon. I am Damilola Unime. Right now in Ottawa, mostly cloudy, 7 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it is 8. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The former chair of the Police Services Board in Ottawa is testifying today at the public inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. City News parliamentary reporter Cormac McSweeney has more.
City Councillor Diane Deans was chair of the Police Services Board through much of the convoy protest, and she started off by saying that she had concerns about it before the convoy's arrival, and she expressed them in a conversation with then Police Chief Peter Slowly. She claims he asked her why she was so worried and that most of the protesters would be gone by the Monday of that first weekend. Deans also says her board didn't receive information such as a warning from the Hotel Association that the protesters were looking to stay at least 30 days. And they didn't get a detailed operational plan from police after it turned into an occupation until close to the end. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was asked about evidence that was brought forward yesterday that in a phone call with Ottawa's mayor, he said Ontario Premier Doug Ford was hiding from his responsibility for political reasons.
Of course, there was moments during the unfolding of this convoy where there was times where different organizations, different orders of government weren't working as tightly as would have been ideal.
Later today, we'll hear from our first witness with the Ontario Provincial Police, Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
And a former deputy Ottawa Police Chief is weighing in on how the Ottawa Police handled the Freedom Convoy. City News reporter Chris Curries has that story.
As the inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act and the struggles of police forces to rein in the Freedom Convoy continues, Larry Hill tells Wake Up with Rob he'd like to hear more insight into those behind-the-scenes struggles.
The little bits are leaking out that there were, there was friction between the police forces here, and there was friction internally and within the Ottawa Police leadership.
He says the Ottawa approach has always been to facilitate safety between protesters and the community at large, but notes that plans are typically focused on just a 1 or 2 day demonstration. Chris Curries, City News.
And with the weather forecast for Ottawa and the Valley, here is City News meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Showers will spin over us at times today, mainly for the afternoon. We get into a steadier light rain for the evening, and it may actually
actually mix with some snow, especially overnight. 9 degrees, the guaranteed high. That's it. Have some sunshine today, too. 3 for the low. And tomorrow, more showers, strong wind out of the southwest. High, though, again, only about 9 degrees. Friday, a bit warmer, up to 13, mainly cloudy. For today, the guaranteed high, 9.
City News time is 11:02. The crisis in Ukraine is fast approaching the 8th-month mark, and there's not really a lot of signs of an end in sight. Cassian Soltykevich is the National Secretary of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress.
Even if the war ends in the next few months, we know this is going to be another decade of rebuilding the country, rebuilding buildings, schools, hospitals, infrastructure. We know it's a long haul, and as sad as it is, it's going to take a long. Will still be lasting a little while here.
He tells the Sam Laprade show that his community is very thankful for all the help that has been offered so far, but that there is still a long way to go.
Well, we've seen a dramatic shift in the last 2 weeks or so in terms of Russia's desperation. We're seeing intensified terror bombing, the capital city of Kiev, and many other cities across the country.
And earlier today, Russia's President Vladimir Putin declared martial law in 4 Ukrainian regions that have been illegally annexed by Moscow. Draft of that legislation indicate the decree may involve imposing restrictions on travel and public gatherings, tighter censorship, and broader authority for law enforcement agencies. I am Damilola Unime for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Connecting you and your community. This is the Sam Laprade Show on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, thank you so much for spending your lunch with us here on City News and on Rogers TV. We're so happy that you're here. This is a new feature that we're doing, and we just launched it this week, called Lunch with Sam, where we talk about the top 5 news stories of the day. And we get the perspective of a couple of community and business leaders, and today is no different. Bernie Forestell, fundraising professional, joins me, as well as Greg MacEachern, Senior Vice President, Government Relations and General Manager for Ottawa Proof Strategies. How are you both?
Good, Sam.
Good. Thanks so much to have you both here. Obviously, it's been a very busy news day, as you can imagine, leading up to this election. Greg, should the local police association be issuing statements about the mayoral race in the municipal election? We know interim President Brian Samuel released something indicating they didn't want to get involved in the election, but yet shared that they felt Catherine McKenney wasn't a good choice. What do you think?
Well, it depends on in what context you're asking the question. Do they have the right to do it? Absolutely. Politically, is it actually helpful to the person that you want to see in the mayor's seat? And I would suspect right now, even prior to the February occupation, there were a lot of concerns about some elements on the Ottawa Police Force. We've had things from the tow truck drivers to inappropriate use of information in terms of ex-girlfriends and ex-wives. There was a couple of years ago, a police officer lost his vehicle in Kingston, reported stolen, just for some reason couldn't remember where it was parked. There was an issue around where their service revolver was during that time. So there are a lot of issues prior to this. And, it's been something that a bit of a third rail if you've been running in to avoid when you've been running in municipal politics, because it's, you don't want to be cast against, not supporting our police, but there's obviously a big problem with Ottawa police. I tell friends from out of town, just Google Ottawa Police and Ottawa Citizen and just start to look at some of the stories. So, does the association have the right to do it? Absolutely. Was it helpful to who they want to see in the mayor's seat? I'm not so sure, because, what I hear from a lot of my friends that are, like myself, still undecided, which is very unusual for me, a few days out from the election, if you're not happy with the performance of the Ottawa Police, and we're seeing a lot of things during the Emergencies Act inquiry that do give pause, I'm not sure it was terrifically helpful.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because, if by chance, during this election, that, somebody comes out against a candidate and that candidate wins, then that also can be very challenging to form relationships as well. Bernie, what do you think in terms of, the local police association the interim president, Brian Samuel, speaking about the work and the disappointment that they have in Catherine McKenney.
Yeah, I agree with Greg. The OPA, the Ottawa Police Association, they have every right to say what they want to say. They represent the civilian and the members of the Ottawa Police Service. So definitely they have the right to say what they like. The timing, I question, though, like Greg said, what's going on with the inquiry right now and what we've been through as a city. It's kind of like a backhanded compliment almost, where I watched the video with the interim president, and it was we won't endorse anybody, but it was at the same time you get the feeling that if Catherine McKenney is elected mayor, that there won't be a very good working relationship between OPS and the city of Ottawa, which gives me a bit of a pause for concern. But they're an association that is members elect the president, and they can say what they like. It's a free society.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Bernie, for that. And, certainly the election campaign, really to date, Greg, you've been following election campaigns for a very long time. It's been sort of a dull campaign in many ways. There hasn't been a lot of sort of knockout punches and that type of thing during this time. Getting a little bit spicy over this issue, but overall, what's happening in your network in terms of this election? Are people engaged?
Yeah, I think there has been a pretty large level of increased engagement. I went to the horticultural building, Lansdowne, 2 nights ago for the debate. Very, very well attended. I do wonder sometimes, from my, organized politics day, a lot of times, you can fill a room with your own supporters. Didn't get the sense, obviously there were supporters of the candidates in the room, but didn't get the sense that there would have been that the crowd was all, bought in, baked in for one candidate. And then last night, local CBC had a debate, which I have to say I really liked the format. They kept it quick, they kept it moving, and it was, there were a few shots back and forth. And one of the things I was really glad to see the host Omar raise was around Lansdowne. And I do have a bit of a concern around, with the future of Lansdowne, the selection of a police chief being done prior to an election, when a new council will have to live with that. So I'm hoping that, I've heard, Mark Sutcliffe say last night when he was pointedly asked about this, that he wants to take another look at Lansdowne. I noticed that there's a lot of media and social media commentary on, the outgoing chair of the police board picking a police chief. We haven't had a permanent one for 8 months, and yet all of a sudden there's a big hurry to have one prior to election. That's not a good look, and especially going back to your first question to Bernie and I around the endorsement, from the police association, part and parcel of that. I don't think that's also a great look for the current council. We had a similar issue around the decision around the Chateau Laurier, that an LRT, where the council had their hands bound by previous councils.
Really interesting. Let's shift gears a bit, and we know that today Councillor Diane Deans is in front of the Emergency Acts inquiry. We know that this inquiry is going to be certainly interesting. We're 5 days in. The report has to be done by the commissioner and submitted before February, sometime in February. So this is going to be obviously a very important time in our country. Bernie, what have you learned so far from the Emergency Act inquiry? Have you learned anything that maybe you didn't know going in?
Well, I've learned that we really care about, as a city, for sure, we care about what's going to come out of that inquiry. They're calling 65 witnesses, and it's going to take a lot of time to pour through all their statements. But you know what? It also does two things. It re-traumatizes the residents who had to put up with the convoy, and it gives airtime, I think, to the protesters as well. So depending on what side of the fence you sit on, whether you're a trucker, a resident, a police officer, or whatever, you're going to believe a different story. So I'm worried that there might be more polarization, Sam.
Very interesting. And Greg, how about you? What have you learned so far?
Well, it's, from Diane Deans this morning, the thing that stood out was death threats. And, at the same time, I'm looking at media reports today that Conservative MPs are very unhappy that Doug Ford came out in support of the use of the Emergencies Act, and they're saying it's not helpful. Well, I'll tell you what's not helpful is when you put your political party over the people of Ottawa.
Right.
And the more that I hear about, Matthew Fleury had to move his family out, why would you want to be associated with this element? And I know, they're not all like that, but enough of them are. If you go to a rally and you see a Nazi symbol, then get the hell out. Mm-hmm. There's no reason you should be sticking around. Unless you want to be associated with that. And I think the other thing, Sam, that, looking at some of the, the texts, email messages and stuff that have come out, and I say this as someone who used to support Jim Watson. I helped organize a fundraiser for him when he first ran for mayor. It's evident that he if there was an election on right now and he was running, he would not win. And there's a reason why he's not reoffering. There is just a level of dysfunction at the city. The one thing that really stood out for me is, like Doug Ford, Jim Watson came out in the last couple of days in support of calling the Emergencies Act. But there was a motion from council to look at that a week before it was actually brought in. And Jim voted against it. And why? Because it was led by Councillor McKenney and Councillor Meehan. And, we saw the divide. Like on the same channel, the TV channel that you're on right now, we all watched that council meeting. There were more than 100,000 people watching it on YouTube. And what I didn't think the people of Ottawa saw was a council that we didn't really like very much and that didn't represent us. So those are my big takeaways thus far. I know there's still a lot more information to come.
Very interesting for sure. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back with Bernie Forestell and Greg MacEachern on Lunch with Sam on City News. Stay with us, everyone.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
On the next episode of Simply Cooking by Chef, I show you how to fill your freezer with 8 different meals for the next time you're in a pinch.
You see a lot of these luxury rental apartments that are coming out, and if you're a single person, it makes it extremely challenging to afford just basic lifestyle needs.
Ancestors came here from France to build a better life. We lived here happily for generations until the British decided they wanted our land. The men were called to a meeting and then imprisoned. They demanded we swear an oath to their king and took everything, regardless. We were forced from Acadie, the only home we knew. Mon Acadie n'existera plus.
From 1755 to 1763, over 10,000 Acadians were ripped from their homeland. Despite this, Acadian culture endures in Atlantic Canada.
Hi, I'm Sahai from The Wiggles, and this is my new book, Something in Common. Join me on an adventure as a camp counselor helping some amazing children make friends and share what family means to them. I wrote this book with my friends at Children's Aid Foundation of Canada to help children who might feel lonely or like they don't belong. Not everyone has the same type of family, but we all have something in common. Download Something in Common for free.
I'm Sam Laprade. Thank you so much for spending time with us. We have a bit of breaking news for you. We know earlier today, and I believe it was last night, hearing from Interim President Brian Samuel from the Ottawa Police Association, releasing a statement talking about the mayoral race and specifically indicating we don't really want to get involved in politics. However, we're concerned about some of the past behavior of Catherine McKenney. We're worried about this person being our mayor. We asked Catherine McKenney to join us today, and we know how busy it is right now for all these mayoral candidates. Catherine was not able to join us, but they did offer a statement. And I'm going to read this statement right now from Catherine McKenney, and here it goes. I know from personal experience during the convoy occupation just how critical it is to have effective law enforcement in our city. Public trust in our police services needs to be restored. As mayor, I will work collaboratively with Ottawa Police Service to ensure that effective and evidence-based policing makes our city safer for all residents, including in times of crisis. Further, the hiring of the new police chief will be crucial to restoring trust, and the outgoing council and police services board must wait until voters can democratically elect their new representatives before hiring a new chief. This is why I have called for the hiring process to take place after the election. That concludes the statement we received from Catherine McKenney, who is running for mayor. Greg MacEachern joins us, and Bernie Forestell. We're continuing our lunchtime chat about the top news stories of the day. Greg, when you hear that statement from Catherine in regards to the issue from the Ottawa Police Association, what are your thoughts?
Well, I want to be facetious and say I guess they were listening to the show and decided to follow Bernie and our advice. But no, I think it kind of exemplifies the issue with the association weighing in at this time. They may have just handed McKenney another issue that works for them.
Bernie Forestell, what are you thinking?
Yeah, the timing of candidate McKenney's release is interesting, and we're going back and forth on social media and through the media. Candidates and police and voters are left to make up their decisions, and they change on the fly depending on who says what when. Mm-hmm. Someone who may have voted one way or the other in advance after hearing these statements may wish their vote was different. So I get kind of frustrated, I guess, with seeing the wind blow and the attitudes and the ideas change. As a voter, it's very confusing.
It certainly is all part of the election process, I think, Bernie, but definitely well taken. We think a lot, obviously, locally. We focus a lot locally here on this show. I wanted to think a bit globally today. We had Cassian Soltykevich on a little bit earlier from the National Ukrainian Council, and speaking about obviously the war in Ukraine still is raging on. The people of Ukraine have been quite resilient and certainly haven't given in many ways. And many people are saying Putin is losing this election. Is Canada doing its part, not only for countries, that are in turmoil, such as Ukraine, but also Afghanistan and now Iran? Are you thinking, Greg, that Canada is doing its share?
Well, I think there are three examples there and three very different reactions. I think in terms of Ukraine, for the most part, what we hear from the president of Ukraine, that Canada has really stepped up. You can see by the amount of contact between Canadian government officials, from the Prime Minister, ministers, that there seems to be a good relationship. It's not, they're not always 100% happy, in terms of, the deal around ensuring that Germany, for example, would be able to heat its citizens this year was, a bone of contention. But for the most part, it has worked. And I guess an example would be the new Premier of Alberta, who's had to apologize for some pro-Russian statements in her career as a radio host. Especially a province like Alberta, with a huge amount of Ukrainian Canadians that are settled there. In terms of Iran, I think it's a bit of a work in progress. But what I'm hearing from and reading from members of the community, I think, so far so good. Afghanistan is a different case. I think, and I hear from people in government that they wish that they had pushed the election start last year off a bit and dealt with that situation. I think Canada was caught a bit flat-footed, but we were also following the lead of the United States and Biden, and there seems to have been a huge intelligence failure in terms of Afghanistan and how quickly the government would fall to the Taliban. And obviously lessons learned there, but I don't think it was our finest hour.
Well, certainly when so many people in Afghanistan were actually helping Canadians, they found themselves very alone, very isolated. Canada committed, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau committed to have 40,000 refugees from Afghanistan come to Canada. We know they're not even halfway there yet, and certainly that has fallen by the wayside in many ways because of all the other challenges happening in the world, but certainly keeping pressure on the government regarding Afghanistan and, of course, people coming from Ukraine, which is really important. Let's talk a little bit, Bernie, about this from your perspective. What are your thoughts?
Well, recently, an organization I work with, we needed some new software, and one of the software vendors, we met over Zoom, and I was asking her for the very first time, when I met her for the first time, and I asked her where she was calling into the call from, and she was calling it from Kyiv, Ukraine. She worked from home, and her job was helping clients around the world. So I got to talking to her about what was going on in her country, and the call got very emotional. And as we sit here as Canadians in the comfort of our homes, we have to think about those people who are actually living in the middle of these war-torn countries. Mm-hmm. It's very devastating for them, and we can't always rely on our government to step up and do the right thing. It's up to us as individuals to pressure government to donate when we can to help these people. So who determines what Canada's share really is? I guess it's the government and us voters, but we as individuals can do something as well.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, there's lots of opportunity to help all three groups, to be honest, all three countries with their challenges. We had Goldie Gamari on yesterday. She led a march that happened on the weekend in regards to the tragedies in Iran. So there are definitely opportunities here. Let's end on a little bit of a softer note. Were you watching the big game last night, Bertie? Sens versus the Bruins?
I didn't watch it, Sam.
That's okay. We won, Bernie. We won. So that's good. That's very good. Greg, did you watch the game?
I watched the pre-game coverage and it was nice to see people back. Like Bernie, I didn't watch it. I'm still kind of hoping for my Red Blacks just to have one win at home next weekend, perhaps. Hope springs eternal.
I was just thinking, I think, honestly, Greg, that just makes me adore you more, that you still have hope. You still have hope. I love it so much.
Well, and Sam, the 67s, I believe they're 6-0 and 7-0 right now. So they're a team worth watching as well here in Ottawa.
Absolutely. We're very lucky to have all these opportunities, and I'm lucky to have both of you join us today for Lunch with Sam, talking about some really important issues in our community. I really want to thank you both for spending time with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
My pleasure.
Have a great day.
You too. Bernie Forestell joining us, a fundraising professional here in Ottawa. Greg MacEachern, Senior Vice President, Government Relations, General Manager for Ottawa Proof Strategies. We appreciate their feedback. We'll be doing this, every lunchtime. During the week, we'll be chatting with various community leaders, talking about the important issues of the day. And then after the 12:30 news, every single weekday, we'll be doing the business lunch, a big focus on what's happening in our capital and what's happening from a business perspective. When we come back, we're going to speak with Nokia Canada President Jeffrey Maddox. Stay with us here on Rogers TV and City News.
Sam Laprade will be right back on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at the lighting and the sound, and it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
would like to see politicians and government overall, especially locals, start to support local business more. Because we've had so many businesses that have shut down, and I would like to see local business grow and politicians give more, whether that's a financial contribution or some other layer of support, but something to encourage them to keep business going.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Right now in Ottawa, mostly cloudy, 7 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it is 9. And here's what's making news this hour. The former chair of Ottawa's police board is testifying at the Emergencies Act public inquiry. Diane Dean says the chief of police told her in late January that he would be very surprised if the Freedom Convoy protesters stayed for longer than one weekend. Documents tell the way the commission show former police chief Peter Slowly expected the trucks were expected to arrive in Ottawa and could possibly stay for an extended period. But Dean says in a one-on-one conversation, the chief told her he expected the protesters to be gone by the following Monday. And it's day 3 of mediated talks between CUPE and the Ford government. CUPE represents about 55,000 education workers, including custodians, librarians, and early childhood educators. The union has set a strike deadline of November 3rd, which is about a week from tomorrow. The union president, Laura Walton, is set to deliver an update on the progress of negotiations at 1 o'clock this afternoon. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is guaranteeing Canada will meet its latest climate targets. Canada has set 8 different greenhouse gas emission targets since 1988. 6 of them have come and gone without us coming anywhere close to meeting them. The next target is set for 2030, requiring Canada to get emissions to 55 to 60% of what they were in 2005, and would mean cutting 23 million tons of emission per year. Trudeau told the Canadian Climate Institute yesterday the latest emission reduction plan published in March is accompanied by a plan that shows how to get there. City News time is 12:31. I am Damilola Unime. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The Sam Laprade Show continues on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I'm Sam Laprade. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. It is the Business Lunch, where we focus on all things business. Sueling Ching, the president of the Ottawa Board of Trade, will be joining us in a little bit. But there was a big announcement this week in Canada, and we know it certainly got the attention of the Prime Minister and the Premier. It certainly is big news. We wanted to spend some time today with Jeffrey Maddox, Nokia Canada president. Hello, Jeffrey.
Hi there.
It's certainly some exciting times in Canada. Tell us what's happening with Nokia.
Well, listen, thanks for having us, and we're really excited to share our news today. What we announced earlier this week was that we will be investing $340 million to expand our Nokia Canada footprint, which is based in the Canada North Business Park. And in support of that, all 3 levels of government are also participating with us. We couldn't be more excited to get an opportunity to celebrate the legacy of what's been done from that R&D footprint over the last 35 years. And thrilled that we have the level of support from all levels of government to help us do so.
Well, we're certainly excited about it. It certainly is a good boom to the Canada area. Why Canada, Jeffrey? Why do you think that that's such an important part of this story?
Well, listen, I think I'm a Canadian engineer. I studied at McMaster many years ago, and when I graduated from university, I moved to Ottawa for a very same reason, which is that is the heart of Canada's tech community. The province likes to point out, and I agree, that this is the second largest tech cluster in North America outside of Silicon Valley. And we are home to some of the brightest minds, one of the best educational systems in the world. And so perhaps it's one of the best kept secrets, but those of us that have worked in the area really know and revere the talent pool that exists up there. And I'll say that, we ourselves have operated from that footprint dating back to the mid-'80s when Terry Matthews founded Newbridge. That was later acquired by Alcatel, which Nokia acquired in 2016. But we know firsthand the talent of the people there, and it's really as much a testament to their talent and really the great work they've done from there over the years.
Well, I think communities, especially like Canada, and I think about Nepean and Gloucester, I mean, trying to find those opportunities to work, live, and play within a community as opposed to sort of always having to go downtown. I think that was, an amazing legacy that was done way back 30, 40 years ago, to have that happen in Canada because, people are buying homes there and they're not driving downtown. So there's a lot of benefits there. Let's talk a little bit about the talent pool, Jeffrey. We know so many people are looking for talent right now. Do we have enough talent to satisfy the needs of Nokia Canada moving forward?
Well, certainly I believe we do. And when I say we, I mean Ontario, Canada. I made a comment a moment ago that we can boast not only one of the world's best educational systems, but also, as evidence of that, one of the most well-educated populations anywhere, with more than 53% of Canadians having a university degree. The real question, though, is baby boomers are headed towards the retirement end of their careers, and it's critical that we find avenues to attract that next generation of talent. And with that in mind, we have spent a lot of time trying to improve in that area. We have had hundreds of students in our buildings throughout the COVID pandemic, no less. As interns, we've been engaged with high schools to try and encourage students to get into STEM, and we've been very focused on trying to attract young women into the field as well. And we're really thrilled to say that of a lot of the student populations, we've been successful at having a gender balance in terms of what we're doing, but even more importantly, having a student population annually of 400 students come through the building is really how we think we will continue to compete in the talent battle that is ahead of us, for sure.
It definitely is a battle, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about the announcement. As we know, the Prime Minister was there. Premier Doug Ford managed to make his way to Ottawa as well. This is certainly a big announcement. Give us a sense of a timeline. How far are we talking until everything's complete?
So we plan to break ground early in 2023 and hope to have our side of the property built out so that we can occupy it in 26. So it is right around the corner. Now, if you look at a map and look at the property we have, we're home to 26 acres that's physically at the center of Canada's North Business Park. Now, if you drive by it, you'll notice a significant portion at one end is a surface parking lot. So that's where we're going to start building our new buildings. Once those are ready by 2026, we'll move our staff and people from the existing buildings to the new property. And as part of that, there's a lifestyle street that if you look into any of the zoning pictures, you'll see that while this still remains to be fleshed out as we work with our development partners and eventually select the final candidate to do that development, you'll see that there's a number of retail outlets. The idea being you come to work, there's opportunities to eat, dine, do your dry cleaning for that matter, do a little bit of shopping. And once that happens, the longer-term vision, which is really up to the developer once they're selected, is to build housing on the north end of it. So really, this concept of a 5-minute community, the live, work, play concept really is the grander vision.
Certainly exciting. And have you been welcomed by other neighbors? Is this good not only for Nokia?
Well, I can give you my perspective of that, and I think the answer is yes. I mean, we've done a number of community outreach sessions asking for feedback from the community, and we're doing our best to really incorporate the community's feedback. I mean, green space is important to you. You don't have to drive far around any of the Ottawa region to really recognize the beauty of the green space that exists throughout Canada and the entire region. So it's something that we intend to keep a focus on. to make it walkable, so paths, greenery, and green investments in terms of our objectives. I mean, we see modernizing the property as a way to improve our green footprint in terms of how we have our real estate structured. So all of those things are trying to be considered, and I will say, from what I've heard back, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive.
And certainly is interesting. We know there's so many different initiatives out there and really trying to keep that, Silicon North vibe in that area. What are you thinking in terms of, the amount of employees you're going to need? Is this meaning new jobs?
Yes, it's certainly new incremental employment. I mean, I think we anticipate over time that as people retire, we'll have to replace those jobs, but we expect our site alone to grow. And to be honest, though, we hope this is not just good for us as much as we're excited to, take the podium this week and start to drive this. We hope this to be good for Canada for sure, but Ontario and Canada. I mean, Canada has such a fantastic legacy in telecommunications innovation over, decades of investment in R&D. We hope that we inspire others to continue to invest. And so, we couldn't be more excited about not only what we've announced, but also where this should go over time.
Mm-hmm. We know during the pandemic, Jeffrey, a lot of people working from home and caused a lot of challenges, and many businesses are pulling back. They're not signing leases moving forward. Staff are going to remain at home. Was there discussions about sort of the new way of working now and around this facility, because it is quite a big investment?
Yeah, no question. I can assure you they were heated discussions in many cases as well, because right. I think in fairness, I don't know that anyone can really say with certainty what 10 years from now looks like. But I will say, as we make investments, I'd probably say two things. For one, we are able, because we're making the investment now, we're going to be able to capitalize on whatever we think that right answer is, knowing all that we know from the experiences of the last several years and what it means to have a hybrid work environment. We're really fortunate as a company in technology that we certainly embrace technology and support a flexible work environment. That's long been a tenet of our technology model, and certainly we expect that to be the case going forward. But on the other hand, engineering is much of the engineering work is work that requires collaboration. In some cases, it requires labs and equipment and test equipment, et cetera, that can't be done in a remote environment. And from a security perspective, a bunch of it needs to be done in a secure facility. Mm-hmm. Now, having said that, we absolutely believe that if we want to attract talent to come to work, we need to listen to our employees and to really get their feedback to make sure that as we build this new property that they can say that it checks the boxes of what they want, whether it's, somewhere to go and get lunch that's close by, or a park to go and sit in and take conference calls, and, any number of things. In fact, just this afternoon, we're holding our first, now that we've announced this, we're holding our first employee sessions to start gathering their feedback so that they too can influence the contents of what we build. Really exciting.
I have to ask you before I let you go, Jeffrey, if I would have bumped into you when you were studying at McMaster and said, hey, Jeffrey, by the way, in the future, you're going to be the president of Nokia Canada, what would you have said to me?
I probably didn't have the thought that this is where I'd land, but I have to say it's with a huge amount of pride that I was able to take the stage this week alongside our Prime Minister and our Premier and all of the people gathered. And as someone who studied engineering in Canada, I mean, there's a lot of pride in the work that happens here. I've had the opportunity over the years to travel the globe, to work internationally as well. And in some ways, there's no place like home. And I think we really have a lot to be proud of. So in my mind, this is not only a Nokia celebration, but it's really with a lot of pride that we can speak confidently about the talent that we employ at Nokia, but that Canada has in this domain. So it's really a proud moment for a lot of us at the company.
Beautifully said. Jeffrey, let's stay in touch and really follow this, take you right through to the day we cut that big ribbon in 2026.
I'd be happy to. Thank you again for the invitation to
My
speak
pleasure.
today.
Jeffrey Maddox joining us from Nokia Canada. He's the president, of course. That new facility in Canada is going to be a pretty big deal. So we're going to be following that story very closely. When we come back, Sueling Ching is going to join us, CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Boy, it has been a very busy week. It's only Wednesday. Very busy week in business and in news. We're going to get caught up with her. You want to lock it in to Rogers TV and City News.
Laprade will be right back on City
News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hello, I'm Jim Deeks, host of Canada Files. I hope you'll join me each week for interesting and informative discussions with some of Canada's most impressive people.
My name is Joel Tamas. This is Red Heaven, and we are going to be playing the Encore concert here in Ottawa. I got goosebumps just looking at like the lighting and the sound, and like it's very exciting to show up at a place like Shankman.
On Thursday's Daytime Ottawa, the Lone Star joins us on the show. They're going to be sharing some great recipe ideas using their slow-cooked brisket. And the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum joins us. They're going to be telling us about their brand new edition called Rex, which is a Mars rover prototype. Also on the show, the Day of the Dead Festival is back. We'll give you all the details on that and much more. That's on Thursday's Daytime Ottawa.
He fell.
Whoa, I'm not driving. I'm way too stoned. How are you feeling, Veer?
Oh, since we had that talk, I'm not driving tonight at all.
What about you, Dave?
You only had a couple of drinks.
And only a couple of puffs.
I don't drink and drive. No way I'm getting behind the wheel when I smoked weed, too.
How are we getting home, then?
Oh, you can drive, Dave.
Come on, Dave.
Take one for the team, buddy.
Don't let weed and alcohol influence your decision to drive.
Yeah, I need a ride.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patini, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Enjoy the fresh outdoors. Play an important role in the lives of school-age children. Get paid to make a difference in your community. Become a crossing guard. We are currently recruiting crossing guards for the school year. We offer a competitive wage with various perks and opportunities for bonuses. Join the Ottawa Safety Council in keeping kids safe in the nation's capital. Find out more at crossing-guard.ca.
What are we doing about COVID? Seems like the communications have been all about how everything's opening up, and yet here in Ottawa we're experiencing our 7th wave, so a bit of a contradiction there.
Laprade Show continues on City News,
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I'm Sam Laprade. Thank you so much for spending time with us here on City News. We're following very closely, of course, the Emergency Act inquiry. We know Diane Deans is in the hot seat today. She's being asked a number of questions by a number of different lawyers. We're going to be following that very closely. You want to stay with us all afternoon. We know yesterday Mayor Watson was in the seat for a very, very long time. Lots of different people coming. We know 65 in total will appear before the commissioner in terms of this important inquiry. So we're following it very closely here on City News, so you'll want to stay with us. I know someone else that's following it very closely, and that is Sueling Ching, CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. How are you, Sueling?
Hi, Sam.
Welcome to the Business Lunch, Sueling. We're going to be doing this every single day, putting a focus on business. I think you'll be happy about that.
I
I'm happy, I'm impressed, and I'm grateful. Thank you, Sam.
That's amazing.
And congratulations. I'm loving the new format.
Oh, I really appreciate it, Sueling. And you know, this has been such an important time leading up to this election. I know you and I were thinking about this election this time last year, but really many people here in Ottawa are just kind of saying, hey, listen, I better go vote on Monday. This election is a really important one. What are you hearing from the business community, Sueling?
Oh, yeah. Yes, we've been planning for a long time, knowing that this would be an important election. Of course, even more so, Sam, with what we have ahead of us as we contemplate our recovery post-pandemic and look for the best opportunities for Ottawa and for building business in the community. And so I think people are interested, and it's a very close race, of course. So that makes it I don't know, more exciting or more spicy. And so we're just encouraging people to sort of buck the trend of low voter turnout for municipal elections and get informed and get involved and have conversations about what's important to Ottawa and to get out and vote, of course.
Certainly in this last week, I've had more people ask me about the election than probably the last 6 months, right? I think a lot of people, realize what I do for a living, probably realize what you do for a living and sort of want to have those conversations. We know in 2018, Sueling, 42% of people that were eligible to vote did so. We know Mayor Watson at the time, obviously had a very clear mandate. Times have changed. We know that 12% of people have already cast a ballot in this particular election of eligible voters. This is something that, I can't say enough about in terms of coming out. If you haven't voted already, October 24th is the last opportunity. The Build Up Ottawa campaign, is this also part of Get Out the Vote from the Ottawa Board of Trade's perspective?
So, yeah, I think, Sam, the last election, of course, the mayor was very well known and he was running again. But now we have the option to choose from two people who have never been mayor, and that's part of why it's important. And so we launched Build Up Ottawa months ago, and the intention was we surveyed our members, talked to economic stakeholders, used information that we have garnered as we have advocated for the business community over this last few years to build a campaign around the priorities so that people could curate conversations that were important about the election and who we choose to come in. And it was really about looking at what those priorities are, how they align with the various platforms. But more than that, Sam, and I've been listening to you too about the inquiry today, more than that what needs to be done is how are you going to go about doing it? How are you going to go about committing to collaboration, consensus building, working not just with your colleagues at council, but other levels of government in order to have the best outcomes for our city and for the people in our city.
Have candidates put enough of a focus? I'm speaking about specifically mayoral candidates. We know there's 14 of them. Have they put enough focus on the economic development of this city? Do you think that's been a focus for them?
Well, Sam, because a couple of weeks ago when we were about to host our debate with a business and economic growth agenda as the platform, it got canceled. And so we were very disappointed about that. Now, thankfully, both Catherine, the leading candidates, Catherine and Mark, have both agreed to do interviews with us to talk about some of those questions and those issues. So we've just posted those on our buildupottawa.ca website. And then we're hosting another debate now, Sam, tomorrow night. And we're doing this one in partnership with the United Way and the Ottawa Labour Council. And we'll be it's called Common Ground, and looking at the economic growth agenda and how it relates to the priorities of social justice and to labor as well.
Such an important conversation. And, so many people, the last poll that we saw, over 30% of people, Sueling, hadn't made up their mind yet. So all of these opportunities to dig in, get to know these candidates is going to be really important.
I think so too. And we've been running virtual roundtables with candidates for council as well all this week, and those are posted on our website. So it gives you an opportunity to hear about what they're thinking and get to know them a little bit and make an informed decision.
Absolutely. We know there's always something going on at the Ottawa Board of Trade, other than, the focus on the election. If we think past Monday evening, if you will, which will be very exciting here on City News, we're going to be hosting a very special show, obviously with the election results. I'll be hosting that with Rob Snow, and it's going to be a very important night. But if you think past that, what does the Ottawa Board of Trade have their focus on?
Sure. Well, Sam, I hope it's not lost on anyone that this is our National Small Business Week. And we've just done an interview with the chief economist from the BDC, and that's out on our channels for people to hear. They've just released a new report around what businesses can do to remain resilient. We encourage everyone to continue to look for opportunities to support our local small businesses. They've had a heck of a few years, and we're not out of the woods. And so the power of the consumer dollar is real, and we have to be intentional about supporting our local businesses.
So important. And, I was thinking about you last night. I was at the NAC last night for Mean Girls, which of course is a great production from Broadway across Canada. And it was packed, Sueling, and it was just so nice to see people, and you could see people, were kind of rushing in because they were coming, for having dinner somewhere in the market, and it just felt like that vibrant Ottawa that you and I love so much is back. And we know, of course, COVID isn't over. I'm not suggesting that by a long shot. A lot of people wearing masks and doing what they need to do to stay safe, but it did feel a little normal, Sueling.
Yeah. And I'm glad for that, Sam. And I'm going to call back later and ask about Mean Girls because my daughter wants to go. But, and I was at the Ottawa Real Estate Forum last week, over 700 delegates for that. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce hosted delegates all from across Canada at the EY Center last weekend. So I agree with you. It feels like people are ready to get back, that we are ready to sort of embrace all of the benefits of being in person and socializing and connecting with people. I will say that I think we need to continue to pay attention to Ottawa Public Health and the guidance that they're giving us. They are really, encouraging us to be thoughtful, particularly people who continue to be, in situations where they have to be more protective of their health. And one of the things that we heard from people coming to events is that they want to feel comfortable wearing a mask. So what we always say is the choice is yours, but to be very welcoming and accepting of those that continue to take those precautions, because we don't know what situations they're in.
Beautifully said, Sueling. And before I let you go, I'll tell you, I would give Mean Girls an A+. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have the pleasure of seeing a lot of theater at the National Arts Centre, and I will say they did a fantastic job, and definitely worth checking out for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sueling Ching joining us, CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. We appreciate her spending time today with us on the Business Lunch. Now, let's just say we're 5 days away from this election. We're starting to hear, big issues that have always been there, but we're seeing different perspectives. And today, we're focused on policing. Do your homework. Look at these candidates. Take a deep dive. And do me a favor. Don't just look at the top couple of candidates. We've heard a lot from Catherine McKenney. We've heard a lot from Mark Sutcliffe. We've heard a lot from Bob Chiarelli. Take a look at some of these other candidates and see what they're offering. This is an opportunity for us to really get to know people that have put their name on a ballot and said, I want to represent this community. I think we owe them the opportunity to research and see who best is going to stand up for what we believe in, our values, where we see the city going. We have 5 days to make a decision. This city very much is undecided still. Please vote. Put it in your calendar. Make sure you've got a sitter. Walk the dog there. Whatever you need to do, make sure you vote on October the 24th. You have been watching us, and we're so grateful, on Rogers TV and listening to us on City News. Danielle Bain is going to take it away with the news of the afternoon. Lock it in, everyone.
You've been listening to the Sam Laprade Show.
Tune in again for local news and community views on City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.